Well, there's got to be more than that. I mean, CO's pretty big, but.
We're live now.
Okay, guys, y'all ready?
Wherever you are.
Okay. Hello?
Mic check, mic check.
Test.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marty Littleton, and Chairman of the Design Review Board. I want to call the meeting to order, and I'd like to ask all of us to pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We always start off our meeting by introduction to the board members that are present. I'll start off to my left.
Good evening, happy election day. My name is Rich Johnson, I live in the Crabapple area.
My name is Ed Parsons. I live on Red Road.
I'm Tim Bryan. I have a business in Crabapple.
And I'm Marty Littleton. I live on Freemanville Road.
And I'm Tony Shepard. I live in Nettlebrook Farms.
Tony is our newest member, and welcome to your first meeting, I believe.
Yep.
Good. Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to
Second.
approve the agenda.
Second.
Or, go ahead. All in favor?
Aye.
Good to go. How about someone making a motion to approve the October action minutes?
Motion to approve the October action minutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good to go. Okay, the first thing on our agenda is the demolition reviews. The first property is 5A, is 13365 Hopewell Road. Is there anyone here representing this review for 13365 Hopewell Road? Okay. Y'all can pick and choose which one you want to come first, since you're closest. Yeah, is the applicant here? You are? Okay, come on up.
Okay. I'm Steve Powell, and my address is 196 Woodhaven Lane, Ball Ground, Georgia, 30107.
Mr. Powell, what are you going to do with the lot once you get the house down?
Okay, I purchased this property to build my personal residence on, so I plan on demolishing the house and rebuilding it.
Okay. So it'll be just a single-family residence?
Yes.
Okay. Do you, have you had the arborist out at your property yet?
Not
to
yet.
look at the trees?
Uh-uh.
Are you planning on putting the house back in the same similar footprint to where
Very
it is
similar
now?
footprint. It's going to be extremely similar, and the plan is not disturb the trees at all. I mean, that's the whole reason I bought the lot, because I love the trees and I want to keep them there.
Right.
One of the reasons.
Okay, it's a pretty lot. I mean,
It is.
I've seen that lot a lot in my lifetime. One of the concerns that I have when we demolish these houses is saving the trees.
Okay.
Personal preference for me would be to be able to have Mark Law come out and look at the site when we have these trees cordoned off, to where he can say that we're not going to disturb these trees that
Okay.
are pertinent to the lot, which would be
Yeah.
ultimately in your best benefit as well.
Sure.
Would you be opposed to that?
I'm not opposed to it. The critical root zones are located on the site plan.
Right, I see that. Do you know when this house was built?
I don't know the exact year, but I think it's been added on to a few times, but it goes pretty far back.
Okay. All right. Any other questions by any other members on the board?
Mark did mention that he'd like to come out and walk the property with me. I'm not opposed
You
to
know, I
that.
always feel better whenever this arborist comes out before we tear something down.
Okay.
So what I would like to do is defer this. We're just doing a review, but to defer it to be able to get the city staff to be able to send him out to look at it, if that would be okay with you.
What is that going to accomplish exactly? I mean, we're going to meet out there anyway and go over it, and he's going to, once the demolition plan is approved, we're going to have, an area zoned off, coordinated off where we can't disturb. Is that something that we can do upon issuance of permit for demolition?
I think once we have Mark Law go out there and look at it, we know that it's got his stamp of approval. One of the problems we have is that people bring us the plans, and obviously we don't go out to the individual lots and look at them. And then we come back, not saying that you would do that, but
Yeah.
we come back and then some trees have been damaged that were really trees we really want to try to save.
Yeah.
And 3, 4, 5 years down the line, you've lost those trees. So all I would ask is to be able to have the arborist look at the trees and work with you, and you to work with the arborist.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with working with the arborist, and obviously, I mean, we're gonna agree to do what he wants us to do anyway in the end, right?
Right. I mean, it's not really for the board to decide on an arborist type issue.
Okay.
Obviously, the city, and I'm only speaking for myself, I can't speak for everybody on here, but what we want to accomplish is maintaining that rural view shed in that particular house, and the way it sits on that lot is a beautiful setting, and we want to make sure that we, as best we can, to be good stewards, to see that that's what happens in the future.
Sure.
Marty, are you asking that we table approval or denial until the arborist goes out there, or that we approve with a contingent that the arborist goes out there before any work can be done or building permit be issued? Yeah.
I think that before we issue the land disturbance permit, to be able to get the arborist to come back and then let it be a staff level issue.
My recommendation would be to defer the application for 30 days and then have the applicant come back at the next DRB meeting next month with the recommendation from the arborist, so then you can formally approve it and you don't have to worry about issues. At least if any issues come up, the board would be able to address those issues with the applicant prior to an approval. If you approve it with just the arborist, then it won't be put back in front of the board. So my recommendation would be to just defer this application for 30 days, let them come back with the recommendations from the arborist, and then the board can make a recommendation from that point.
How does the rest of the board feel about that?
I mean, is there other reasons? Because I know that we're approving the new guidelines for demos. So I mean, is there other concerns that you have that would come into effect once the new guidelines have been approved?
I don't know, because, we haven't actually formally adopted those, but I think in this case, it would be probably best to defer this one for 30 days, because it's a sensitive area with visual impact and whatnot. And then have the city arborist make the recommendations, and then the applicant come back and just assure the board that everything is going to be addressed. And the board would have the ability at that point to make the formal approval or make approval with some conditions that the applicant would agree to. It would just be a whole lot cleaner on this one.
Well, see, one of the problems that we get criticized, and I have been personally lately, that we approve things without giving real due consideration to the end result, in these demolitions. And so I'm respectfully cautious to make sure that I've covered the basis for the redevelopment of the lot. I mean, ultimately, we want you to be a citizen in our community, and we obviously want a nice property there.
Yeah, I've been a resident of Milton for about 8 years, and I just moved to Ball Ground recently, and I'm trying to get my family back. My kids go to Kings Ridge up here.
Okay.
That's one of the whole reasons I bought the lot. I'm 1.3 miles now from, school, where I'm driving 30 minutes every day to Ball Ground. So a 30-day referral really is not going to help me in a sense. I'm willing to work with the city. I'm a builder in the city of Milton and Sandy Springs and the city of Atlanta. I'm very familiar with the laws on trees and the do's and don'ts, and working with arborists is right up my alley. It's something I deal with on a daily basis. So it's not something that's new to me. I understand you're trying to protect the city, but I'm also trying to get my family moving up the road as soon as possible. So a 30-day deferral right here is not helping me in any sense.
Marty, is there anyone that wants to speak for or against this?
Why don't we go ahead and let's hear if there's any opposition to what we're doing here on the demolition.
You want me to have a seat?
Or
Yes, sir.
public comment.
Any other public comment? No.
I'm Annette Kelly. I'm from Ball Ground also. That's a coincidence, I guess. I'm speaking against the demolition because this is my great-grandfather's house. It's built in 1842. It belonged to Blair McGee Kelly, Nancy Emerson. Nancy Emerson's ancestor was James Emerson, who was a regulator in North Carolina. Another ancestor of hers, Henry Emerson, fought in the Revolution. And they have a lot of spread out family descendants in this area here. They married in some of the Mannings and the Pools and the Ruckers and the Maddocks. There's a lot of history, this family, this house. And I would really like to see a decision delayed on, a final decision delayed, so that I will put in a nomination for preservation, but I have to have a little bit of time. I don't know how long that takes, and I would like very much to think, don't do this fast is all I'm asking, and let the board have a chance to investigate and see if it's worth saving, because it's probably one of the oldest houses in the area. And I guess that's my main point, just delay and consider the age.
Marty, I've got a question.
Okay.
Given the age of this house, has any certification been done to ensure that there's no grave sites on this site?
There's none recorded that I'm aware of.
I don't know. There is supposed to be a Kelly Holden cemetery that's been lost, and there's an Emerson cemetery which is almost lost. I know where it is, but I don't think there are any grave sites on that plot, since there's another, according to the Milton County Cemetery book, there was a Kelly Holden cemetery near there, but not right on the property, another mile up the road, I think.
Ma'am, if we were to delay this, what would be the desired outcome? I mean, is the desired outcome for you no demolition whatsoever?
No demolition. Demolition would be wonderful to me, and maybe the county, the city, county, whatever, the preservation board, be able to preserve it and use it in some way because of the age, I guess. And I think, as he said, Mr. Powell said, a lot of the house is still fairly original. I think there's been some additions on the back, but I think it is an example of the architecture of the time.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys, I'm struggling here with, got a property owner here who owns a piece of property. I mean, if you don't demo it, then what does he do with the property?
Well, I would be hoping maybe that the preservation board could purchase the property from him before he does anything else. I don't know. That would
probably be, obviously anything could happen in life, but it would probably be unlikely to happen. It is not something that happens quickly, no matter what. And this property was not identified early on. Now, I know that we're a fairly new city and we're trying to deal with all the change. So, in one sense, we would love to preserve our historic part of our life here. Mm-hmm. The other part is we do have homeowner rights, the guy that owns the house, that we got to deal with. So there has to be a happy medium between the two things. It would be a perfect world if the historic preservation groups could afford to buy all the houses that were on that list. Yeah. And that would be a wonderful thing for us to try to get to. The likelihood of it happening is probably a lesser percentage. But having said that, Mr. Powell builds houses in lots of places, and I'm certainly sure that he's going to put his family in this house. He's going to build something in keeping with the area. But we do need to take the time to be able to make sure that what does go back there, or what stays there at this point, that some thought has been put into it to be responsible.
I would appreciate that thought.
I'd like to say something else if I could.
Yes, sir.
So my plan all along has been to not restore the house, but to build a structure very similar to what's there. In other words, the footprint that's going back is almost identical to what's existing now.
Just a modern structure.
It's more of a modern structure, but it will resemble a farmhouse look. That was the whole reason for me buying the property. And quite frankly, when I spoke with some people in the city and I sort of addressed this up front, this is not on the preservation list, is it? Because I'm going to buy this house, I'm going to close it, and I need to know if I can tear it down, because once I buy it, it's mine. And so I went through that with some verbal communication with some of the members of the city and got that confirmation. But
Have you
again,
got a house plan?
I
Have
do
you,
have a
have
house
you already
plan.
got a rendering of it or anything?
I've got a sketch that Roger Caldwell's drawn for me, and so I will be building back the same, very, like I say, very similar structure. It's going to have 2 chimneys on each side in the front. The front's going to be very similar to what is existing there now. Because I'm trying to make it look like it's been there for a long time. That's my
I
whole point.
understand. The only thing that I really want to accomplish out of tonight is not to make you mad,
Okay.
not to make her mad,
Okay.
to keep everybody on an even keel,
I understand.
and try to make sure that we've done our due diligence.
And I understand that. I get what you're saying. I'm just on the fast track to move my family back. When you're driving from ball
Hey,
ground
listen, you're talking
back
to
there-
a previous builder.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
the reality of it is that somewhere, somehow, we have to be good stewards. And so we need to ask the right questions and do the right things. Doesn't mean that you won't be able to tear this house down.
That's what I stand for, doing the right thing.
So what I want to try to do is, if you'll agree, I would like to try to defer this to the next meeting.
When's the
That would
next meeting?
It'll be 30 days from today.
And what's going to happen in that time?
Here's what I would like to
Okay.
see personally. I would like to see it doesn't have to be specific rendering, but a generalized rendering of how you're going to put this house back together so that we can see that it is going to be, we can't dictate taste. We can't. However, it would be nice to have something built back. I rebuilt 75 houses or so in downtown Marietta, and I've faced this very situation before. You know, and even though I'm tearing the house down and I put the face value of the house back to exactly what was there before, the reason I couldn't use what was there before because it structurally wasn't sound. There were so many issues that there wasn't a partial take it apart and bring it to modern. It's called, what's the word I'm looking for? Functionally obsolete. There you go. The reality of it is this house is functionally obsolete as it stands. If we can get a house that looks in keeping and make it functionally correct and make it be something that's an added value. I understand the historic preservation part of it, and if he's willing to sell it and there's somebody on the Historic Preservation Society that wants to be able to help put up the money to buy it, then a deal can be made. But in the absence of that, we have to be able to be prudent about what we're doing. And the prudent thing is to see what this gentleman wants to put back, how it resembles what's there currently, and to make sure that we've dotted all our I's and crossed all our T's. The reality is I just don't want to be accused of just arbitrarily trying to decide to tear down a early 1900s building. You know, I have no idea when that building was built.
I think the records show 1842.
Yeah, I believe there was a structure there in 1842. I don't know that it was that structure, but it's an early 1900s style, the way that it's been built.
As far as I know, I don't think Blair Kelly probably built the house because he didn't get married until 1851. So I'm not saying he built it, but he lived there. As far as I know, his whole life here. He came from North Carolina. But
Let me tell you, I didn't tear it down. I rebuilt a house in downtown Ackworth, and I was told the house was originally built in 1850, whatever it was. When we disassembled the house to rebuild the house, we finally determined that the house that was originally there in 1850 was actually 2 rooms of what existed today.
Yeah, this has been added on to.
And so that's what you're going to find with this. This is going to be an 800 or 900 square foot structure that was originally built whenever it was rebuilt, and it's been rehabbed over a lifetime to last this long. But
Mr. Chair,
yes,
can I also add, if the board grants 30-day deferral, that would also give us enough time possibly to reach out to the Historical Society just to see if there's any documentation that they'd want to do to photograph the house or anything in the house that maybe the owner would be willing to donate to the Historical Society or something.
you know,
upon
when
demolition.
we tore down the buildings that were where the new library's going,
Yeah,
I actually, for the historical people, have stored that material,
right.
and they at their expense basically disassembled those
Right.
two
So
buildings.
If there is something historical,
Would you,
significant, maybe you'd be willing to say, okay, as part of the demolition approval, I'll let them come in and take out the fireplace mantle or something that they could say, as part of that. I mean, I'm just saying.
or
they
quite
could look
frankly,
at
it'd be
it,
reincorporated into the part of
or
the house. But
Incorporate it into the house, and, I mean, it's just, at least they could document.
all I'm really trying to do, Mr. Powell, is to make sure that we've given this thought, that the process is a thoughtful one of something that
I understand, but is this is now with the trees original, but we're going to some different, so I'm just trying to figure out how this process moves forward, and that's all.
the real truth of the matter is, I'm just trying to get it delayed so somebody can look at this site
Okay.
and see what's really there.
Okay.
That's all I want
How
to
do
do.
you feel about the house going back and
I'd like it a lot better if you did more or less the same
look?
style of house.
Okay, would that make you happy?
Somewhat.
Okay.
Well, listen,
I
it's,
wish you could remodel the other, I realize it's expensive to remodel the other one, so.
here's the truth. The truth is, in a perfect world, it would be a perfect house, currently, the way it sits. And then we could say, you need to keep this house forever, the way that it sits. But with the absence of us knowing specifically about this house, no offense to you, but whatever you say and whatever the reality is when you do the historical research of the house, it's got to be based on something that you can put your fingers on. You know, I mean, because I will tell you, I've listened to lots of people tell me this, my great-great-grandmother lived in this house in 1820. Well, they didn't have a road here in 1820, and there were still trees here in 1820. So, but my point I'm trying to make is that we just need to deal with this on a thoughtful basis, and that's why I'm asking you
Okay.
to cooperate with.
All right, I'll do that. What do I need to get back to the city in order to keep the process moving
Well, I
forward?
think number one, we have to make sure that he schedules with Mark Law, the arborist, just to look
Yes.
at the trees and get that issue resolved, which I don't think is a big issue, but at least you can.
And
He can
then-
meet me out there tomorrow, knowing Mark.
Yeah, right.
Okay, the other thing I'd like to see done is, if you would be willing to do it, is to at least at the minimum show Bob in the interim between now and our meeting. I'm not looking for a $25,000 rendering of this house. I just want a general rendering
I've got
of
it.
how you're going to put it back.
Oh, sure.
And so that way, when we bring it before the board next time, we'll be able to show the public that we have given due consideration to the fact that it is an old house, and we're trying to stay in keeping to
Perfect.
our roots.
Marty, can I add one thing here? I'd like that because he came before the new demolition permits and requirements are imposed, that he be grandfathered into the current statute as it currently stands right now.
Can we do that?
Because in a month from now, it's going to be different, and I just think it's only fair to him that because he was on time doing all these things, that
Right.
he's in the guidelines as they currently are.
From what I understand, I don't think any of the changes are going to impact what he's trying to accomplish.
Then it shouldn't be a difficult amendment to it.
And I don't know that we can legally
I don't know if
add
you can
that.
legally do that, but I mean, the board is aware of it, and the board would react the way the board wishes to react.
Here's the real truth. Show the respect to the original property that's there. Show us that if I walked through that house, I could spend less than 5 minutes just like you, and I can tell you whether that house can really be fixed easily or not. And the fact is, most likely it cannot.
Absolutely.
So, that being said, if we put back stuff in some respect to historical perspective, I think would be great. And I think you'll be happy with the end result.
I don't know, and I haven't totally looked.
We
at
don't
it
get
yet.
to see, we don't even know what those changes are.
I just
till the
want to
end
make
of the
sure that
meeting.
if you do have changes, at least in my opinion, you're here
I
before.
appreciate
These
that.
other two after you are going to get this treatment
I need
the
that.
way the law is right now. In my opinion, if you guys can come to agreement, if everybody's good on arborists coming and all that good, feel good stuff, then you should, the rules as they apply right now should apply to you
Thank you very
on
much.
December 4th or whatever day.
I think
it
the
is.
only thing we can really do is say that we're going to defer this to the next meeting. However, just know that the board, as we sit, we know you were here before.
I have one question now. Should I go ahead and fill out the form for nomination of the house?
You can.
So the Historical Society would at least look at it, the Preservation Society would at least look at it.
You can. That's not part of our bailiwick, but
Well, I didn't know
but-
whether you would set that in motion, or should I?
it is not something we would do as a board. It would be something individually, if you want to do that you can do it. I would suggest that Mr. Powell and you get together and have a powwow And the two of you get together, have a powwow, and you'll find a way. I mean, this will work out fine for everybody. So we got a 30-day deferral. Can I get somebody to make a motion to that?
Mr. Chair, before you do that, could I offer just a quick comment in
Yes, sir.
response to the question about whether or not there would be different laws that would be applied to this particular circumstance if it was carried forward to a different point in time? And the answer to that question is very straightforward. It is no. This came forward at a certain point when the law existed in a certain way, and it will travel until completion with the law in that case. If that were to be a year from now, it would travel under the law that exists today. So I can be very clear that there's no concern that there's
I
any
just
change
didn't want
that
him to
would
kind of
occur.
get caught in this limbo world where he's thinking he's operating under one set of rules. They change on him halfway through, and he's left holding the bag.
No, the law will exist at the point in time in which the process starts, and it
Great.
will travel then throughout the process with that set of facts.
That's great to know. Mr. Powell, we really appreciate your cooperation, and I understand how difficult this is because
No,
Been under-
this isn't really what I expected. I mean, I expected I was going to come up here and get my demolition approved.
You know, I can't tell you how many times I've done that in my lifetime. However, that being said, the reality is you're going to build a great product. You're going to put your family in it. You will ultimately get to do it. The way that we're going about it will be that everybody knows that we, at the very minimum, paid attention to the details of it and tried to be respectful of the past. And that's really all we can hope to accomplish.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Somebody like to make a motion to defer this? I'll make a motion to defer 13365 Hopewell Road till the next calendar meeting.
Those conditions.
Yes. The conditions being the arborist and a rendering of the property to the city architect and brought back before us.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good to go. Thank you, Mr. Powell. Okay, 76-425 Lively Road. Hello, Kevin.
Hey, how are you?
Good. So this is not an old house?
No, and the engineer has been out and looked for any specimen trees that are not there, and there are none there. This is actually Kevin Plemons, 16565 Freemanville Road, Milton, Georgia. This is actually lot 127 of the Manor Golf and Country Club also. When JD developed the subdivision, this was a house that was on one of the parcels that was assembled to develop the subdivision. He actually had his office in there for years, and it's been vandalized. The kids are in there, and we've got a contract on the lot with a buyer to build a new home. All the utilities have been disconnected. The surveyor's been out there to locate any trees. There will also be a site plan done for the new home construction. We don't plan on taking any trees out, just the structure.
Okay.
It's a house that's probably 25 years old. It's just been sitting abandoned for 6 or 7 years during the...
Have we got any kind of plans of what's going back?
No, they're just buying the lot. They haven't designed the house yet, but the house is under contract to be signed once this is... They'll close after it's demoed.
Any questions? Anybody on board? I don't have any questions.
Not on this one.
So would anybody like to make a motion?
Any public comment?
Any public comment? Okay, there's no public comment, so I'd like a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Kevin, have a
Thank you.
good day, buddy.
Appreciate it.
16360 Puckett Road. Hello, Joe.
Well, I'm not Joe, but close.
Okay.
My name's Ron Pfeiffer. My address is 5006 Kingsley Manor Court, Marietta, Georgia, 30066. And I am representing Joe tonight because he couldn't be here. This is not an old house either. This house is about 25 years old. It sits in phase 2 of Blue Valley. The LDP has already been issued. The arborist has already been out. Joe did not realize he needed a demolition permit until last week.
Did he tear it down already?
No. Oh, no. No. No, I happened to tell him that he needed a demo permit before he started, because I've been in these meetings before.
So there's nothing significant about this structure whatsoever?
No, nothing significant at all.
You got a picture of the house?
Yeah, there is.
I've actually been to that site. I like the white barn you tore down,
I'm sorry about that.
and the other two barns.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Either.
Okay.
Is this an old farm site or is this a residence?
It was a residence. One of the gentlemen that owned part of this property that became Blue Valley, he owned one of the parcels. He built this about 25 years ago. His family lived there for several years, and then when he sold the piece of property off, this became a rental property, and as far as I know, it's been a rental for about 6 or 7 years now. And unfortunately is in pretty sad shape.
Want to make sure it wasn't an old farm and there might be a fuel tank buried out there somewhere or something.
No.
So, okay.
No, it's relatively new. It was built, looks like in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. With that being said, is there any public comment? Okay. Without any public comment, would somebody on the board like to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve agenda item 5C, 16360 Puckett Road.
I'll second
As
it.
approved.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Ron,
I did. Second.
Yes, sir.
you're good to go.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you. For once in a blue moon, we have no final reviews. So next on 7 is our courtesy reviews. The first one will be 12632 Lacoma Trace, Crabapple Crossroads.
How's everybody doing? All right?
No, I'm doing all right.
Okay. Any questions for me about the request there?
I have a couple.
Yes, sir.
It's a small backyard.
Very.
What do your neighbors have to say? Have you talked to your neighbors?
Yes. The next door neighbor immediately adjacent to us, and I just want to be clear, I'm representing John and Connie. My name's Eric Taylor, and I probably should state my address for the record. It's 143 Danielsville Street, Jefferson, Georgia, 30549. The next door neighbor, which is lot 13 to the right there, they have also spoken with me as their landscape architect to come up with and design a pool for them as well. So on the other side, lot 9, we have spoken with them, and because of the existing existent wood fence there and the fact that they're using essentially a portion of John and Connie's yard, and it's done legally in that particular development. Everybody's sharing yards basically, but
There's
it does.
an easement between all the houses.
Correct. Yeah, we have spoken with them, and they did not have any issue with this whatsoever. The equipment actually falls on the opposite side of the house from lot 9, in between lots 11 and 13.
You know, my biggest fear personally is that everybody's going to want a pool that lives
Come on, let's
on
do
that
it.
street in those small little lots. Because, you know, the original plan for this type of housing was never had that intent to have a pool in such a confined space. So how do you address that from a visual standpoint, a light pollution standpoint, a noise standpoint, and an egress and ingress for kids running between houses? And I'm not trying to be difficult.
No,
I'm just trying to.
I think they're good questions. You know, when when John and Connie contacted me and said, hey, we lived in Macon and we would like to do this here, part of my job is to listen to the needs of my clients and then try to be as accommodating as possible while steering them in an appropriate direction. I think the best thing that I could do for you all is to describe the idea of a swimming pool is not what this is, okay? This is more like a glorified spa as opposed to a swimming pool. So the first thing that I would say is that the size of this particular pool is it's just not anywhere consistent with maybe what we have in our minds as what would normally be in a backyard area to provide swimming for our kids.
How many gallons does this pool, do you know?
It's about 9,000.
So it's about
1/3.
40% of that of a.
Yeah, it's about 1/3. Normally, most residential swimming pools fall between 15 and 35,000 gallons, right around in there.
Right.
What is just the general dimensions of the pool? It looks like it's what, like 30 by?
No, it's actually 20 by 15 at this point, and that's at the widest points. It is free form, so we mark off on what we delineate, and what's recommended is for us to give that widest dimension point there.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
What about pool decking? Because pool decking would come into play here too. It's just showing the line of the pool, so if the applicant can just.
And so when you're in such I'm just trying to ask a technical question.
Sure.
Footprint of the house, impervious surface. What is the percentage? What does it change in terms of the impervious surface that you've got for the lot, or for the whole general? You understand where I'm trying to go with this? You're going to put concrete back and eat up another.
It ends up being about 300 square feet.
Yeah.
I mean, a good portion of their concrete pad there is acting as their pool deck for John and Connie. The other portion of pool deck is simply to access the other portions of the pool. It's not necessarily going to just spread all over the place. And it does stay within their property lines as described on their plat.
But not in the setback. It's
It
inside.
it does actually.
It's going to go inside the setback.
It does actually go inside the setback. The only thing that actually projects beyond the setback is the actual pool itself, and that's at the rear, which is an
Do you know
alley
how many
access.
feet that is that it actually goes into the?
At this point, we're standing 12 feet off of the rear property line, and the required building line setback is 15, and so we have a 3-foot encroachment.
Yeah. The actual setbacks required for a residential pool like this would be 10 feet. So
Okay.
it's the 2-foot on the side yard.
How far is it though from this 2 foot to this other person's, to the lot 13's property, to their
2 feet.
house? I see 2 feet, but to their house. Because technically, in these homes, the fence goes from 11 to 13, and then all of this dash stuff on your sheet here is,
That's deemed
while it's not
John and Connie's
technically their yard, it is fenced in as their property.
Correct. And if you'll note on lot 9 there, you'll see a concrete pad that was actually poured by the contractor when this house was originally approved. We're not talking about John and Connie's house now. We're talking about the
Lot 9,
the
yeah.
neighbor to the left there. That pad was deemed necessary for ingress, egress to the house, access to the yard, and it does actually come across the property line. And that's an approved situation because, I mean, again, the houses are small. I mean, the houses are big, much bigger than my house, but the lots are very small. And so, the actual space that's available for even like a concrete pad, for example, on lot 9, to not run across the property line is a little bit outrageous. And the other thing is that this dashed area here, in order for people to be able to utilize it as their yard, which essentially that was what the covenant was designed to do, was give them a yard. What John and Connie are saying is hey, can we please, we don't want to build a permanent structure there, but can we please use our yard for our yard?
Would it be possible for them to slide that pool off to the left so it's actually more behind that house so they could, rather than being a 2-foot from the property, can't they move that over 8 feet to the left?
We could shorten the pool some. Right now, the way that their yard sets up, kind of with the existing, she has a little rock and gravel area. It's described there. She's converted that into her little garden, So they were trying to protect that corner of the yard, which is much more directly behind the house and adjacent to the concrete driveway. The other portion is just a large grass area. And, of course, I don't know if it was necessarily a surprise to them. I hesitate to say that. But to know that their property actually ends, just a scant couple feet off of the corner of their home, and essentially limits what they can and cannot do within their own fenced property. I'm not sure that was the original intent behind, what was actually happening in the
And
in the
so
neighborhood.
y'all know, you can't, when you're on the street and you look back, it would be very difficult to see this pool.
And we've actually provided a planting plan that shows that we would screen that. There is actually a gate up here at the front of the property there in the fence, and we've suggested several types of evergreen plantings that would mitigate the view from the street back into the backyard. Whether they did the pool or not, they were just kind of trying to increase their level of privacy.
And I live in this neighborhood, that's why I'm asking
Okay,
this
yeah.
question. I don't think these folks have kids, am I correct?
They don't.
And Marty, just so you're aware, the neighborhood has a pool.
Okay.
But the pool is not much bigger than the pool that they are building right here. And thus, it is also run over by a ton of kids, which is great in many respects. But if you are a family that doesn't have kids and you go to the pool, it is run over by kids and it's very small. There's not enough parking. There's not nearly enough chairs. So when you look at it from assuming everyone needs a pool standpoint, they are challenged from a standpoint of using the community pool based upon their needs. Just my thought. But.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess my thought is there any way that they could position these pools so you're not having to ask for a variance on the setbacks? 'Cause, it's possible to do that. She just might have to move her garden over to the right.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, then it makes your life a whole lot easier if you don't have to come looking for variances all the time.
No, and on lot 13,
Closer to the house.
pardon me?
You could move the pool closer to the house if you wanted to,
Yeah, but it needs to really move to the left is
and
where it
move
needs
it
to
to the
go.
left a little bit.
Here.
But y'all remember, these people, Lot 13 is effectively agreed to give them this easement here in terms of the property line. So the way that these homes all assume that their property line is, at least in terms of practical, everyday operations, is that 11 thinks that their lot, or assumes their lot, they use it every single day over
As
to
their
13.
lot.
13 goes all the way over to, I'm assuming,
Correct.
14 or
Yeah.
15 or whatever it is. 9 is using 11's yard. So if you really wanted to do it to the end of the property line from a practicality standpoint, because there's already fences there, you should measure from the edge of this pool to the house or to the fence.
Or to the easement, the end of the easement.
Correct.
Does the easement transfer with ownership?
It does.
Yes.
Yeah. This is what's considered from a legal standpoint as a permanent easement.
But you still have to follow, you have to allow walking ability from the front to the back of the lot through that easement, right?
That's a question I don't know the answer to. I'm assuming that because there's a gate on the front side, but there is not one on the back side, in a direct line that would actually fall in that easement area. That I don't know how to answer that. Actually, I'd need to research
Yeah,
that.
That's true. The fence is over there or the gate is over there by the driveway.
One of the things that I would like to see is something written from lots 9 and 10, 9 and 13,
Yeah.
that they're okay with it, and then some sort of true landscaping plan that we can see that
We've submitted
that's
the
tastefully done.
We've submitted the landscaping plan. I have a representation of that here. Everything is labeled and done. I'd like to submit that. Sure. And then would that documentation from the neighbors, what would you like that to entail? Just the fact that
Just
they've
a
given...
letter saying that they're fine with the pool being built, and
Okay, but pool specific?
yeah, because what here's the thought process. Thought process is, I live in house 13. These people in house 11 can move in. When I bought my house on 13, there wasn't a pool on 11. Now there's going to be a pool that's really close to my house, and I may be opposed to that, and that's not what I bought. What I bought was what I got. So the right to quiet enjoyment, if you understand the drift of what I'm trying to go to. And
He's,
so,
he's just asking for a letter that says everybody's good with it. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a, novel, just.
Okay.
right. So what I'm trying to say is that if you bought a house and your house was like this, and the people next door decided they wanted to put a professional ping pong ball
Right.
set up next to you,
Yeah.
you wouldn't want that put there because that's not what you bought. And so as long as the neighbors that live there agree with it,
Yeah.
and it's not real far, and it's within our ability to grant the access to do it, and it's going to be landscaped and tastefully done, then I wouldn't have a problem with it as long as everybody, because the next person that comes along to buy house 13,
Yeah.
if the pool's already there, they're buying the house with the pool there.
With it there.
So they know what's there.
My
But
next.
I just don't think that it makes sense for us to arbitrarily change stuff if the community itself, the people that are directly affected, don't have some sort of input to agree to it.
Right.
It's not what they bought.
So if we just recap the recommendations from the board to the variance?
Yeah.
And Marty, can you explain to him what the process is here? Because I don't know if he knows that all we're doing here is.
This is just a courtesy review to
Correct.
give you ideas of what we want.
Right.
So
The actual-
to recap, our courtesy review is this. Though we personally I don't personally like giving away the variances. But if we're going to give away a variance, I would like to see us get the following things.
Understood.
One, lots 9 and 13 agreeing that they're okay with this being there. A good absolute landscape plan to what's going to be here. The answer to the question whether or not egress from the front to the back of the property through this easement is something that's granted to both, because then it becomes a different issue of insurance and all those other things, because then you're essentially agreeing to an easement for both houses, isn't that right? So house 11 and 13, they have equal use to that easement, is that correct?
Ultimately, the reason that they have these easements is that lot 13, if he needs to go into this person's lot to, let's say, repair his siding on his house, can do so without lot 11 saying, sorry, bud, you can't come and fix the side of your house.
So
That's the ultimate, I think, goal there.
So access to the easement property has to be incorporated into your landscape plan so that they can in fact get easement.
Sure.
So the recap for you, Bob, is landscape plan, agreement with the community, meaning the affected property houses next to it, and some sort of visual that can let us know what it's really going to look like at the end of the day. I see that you've got your landscape plan, but you're asking for novices people to see the picture without a picture. I mean, I know what the plan is, but some sort of viewpoint for us to be able to see it.
So you're asking for a three-dimensional perspective from what angle, or?
It doesn't have to be technically deep, but a rendering of the way it's going to look. I mean, I'd like to see, wouldn't you guys, see how it's going to look from the back and the front? Or how,
Yeah,
I mean,
like my big thing is the wood fence and stuff that's in the back.
Yeah.
How's this all going to look together?
But it's already there. I mean, the only thing that we're doing, the wood fence is existent along all those homes. Please understand, I'm not telling you that I'm not going to draw it. You know, I'm happy to draw it. But I'm trying to understand what it is that you're actually asking, or what view that you'd like to see. Are you wanting to see
The
from
big thing
the
I want to
street?
see is lots 9 and 13 saying they're okay with it.
Okay.
Because it affects them directly, and I would like to see them say, look, we're good with it.
I realize that this is outside of what is on the agenda, but I would like to ask a question about Lot 13, if I may.
Okay.
And that is that since we have already spoken with them about doing a pool for them, done the drawings and whatnot, and it does fall within the setbacks and guidelines, is that something that would still? I just want to make.
I don't think it comes before us since it's not,
Okay.
since it's within.
your next step here is what you'll do is you'll take all of these recommendations and you will collect them all, and then the next meeting that you have to go to is the Board of Zoning Appeals. Is that correct? Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And that they will actually give you the thumbs up or thumbs down on this variance. We are merely saying, hey, if you do all these things, you have a lot better shot.
Understood. Understood.
We're just trying to be respectful of the neighbors.
Sounds good to me.
Make sure that we give it the due consideration.
Understood.
Do we have any public comment? In the absence of public comment, you've gotten what our recommendation is.
This is only one.
Okay. Next on our list is 683 Dunbrody Drive, the Crabapple Station. Mr. Elliott. And
Hi, my name is Chris Elliott.
Hey, Chris.
Hi. Our community is actually across the street from Crabapple Crossroads, Crabapple Station. We're looking to put a community pool in on the pre-designated leisure lot in 2009. This lot was supposed to have a pool put on by the developer. The developer left the community without putting the pool on, and so now we're just readdressing the pool lot and looking at some of the variances that we're going to need to get that done. And so we did bring a rendering. And I do also have some pictures of the community as it exists today. What you'll find about our community is there isn't anything in the community that's 100 feet from anything else. There's probably 7 of us in that 100 feet. So the lot today, the way the lot sits today without these variances, the lot is, useless to us. But with these 2 variances, we feel like we can place a pool that looks like what Richard has designed here for us on that lot.
Is this pool going to be just for Crabapple stations, or, because I know that for a long time, you guys, and then I forget the other Crabapple, whatever they, Crossing, I can't,
Yeah,
Crabapple
Crossing.
X name. Are y'all going to be joint on this, or is it just y'all?
The land is just ours.
Okay.
The communities do exist completely separate of one another. However, financially, it probably will make sense to our community to invite them to join as the only other community that we invite to join our pool. So the way we're looking at the financial plans, we would invite them to join at maybe a little bit higher of an initiation fee. This is a pool that the community will pay for by itself. So yes, we want to invite them, and only them.
How does the community feel about parking?
So our community is very much a walkable community. It exists. I actually have some pictures that I can submit, but the community itself exists in a circle. All of the homes, so there's a pond between the 2 communities, and all of the homes are around this circle. My bus stop, for example, for my child is at Broadwell and McCaws, which is as far as anybody would ever walk to come to the pool. So there is on-street parking for anybody who absolutely needs it, but our community is very much a walking community.
Do you guys plan to, because I know that like right now, my parents live like 4 or 5 homes up on this street. And they always have like cars parking down on the street, which is fine. But when you throw a pool in there, even though it is a walkable community, if you live, say, where the townhomes are, and you got, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, I don't know, just for as example, you're going to throw them in the car and you're going to go over there possibly. Are y'all going to put like no parking signs in front of the street? Because I just want to be cognizant so that traffic can move through there, so that if there's emergencies, the fire truck and stuff like that can get through there, and all those types of things.
Yeah, so there's 2 answers to your question. So first of all, the pool is going to be a completely optional amenity to the homeowners who opt in. And as part of that, there will be guidelines and rules to being part of the pool. So we're going to do everything we can to encourage the community to use that as a walkable pool. Secondly to that, there is some on-street parking. Mm-hmm. So I can submit this if you'd like to see it. But so we took a picture of the way the lot looks from across the street, and it actually indents in,
Yep.
which would allow
Some parking there.
through parking
Yeah.
or through traffic like you're talking about. It's my hope that people pull up, the dad, of course, drops off the wife and kids. This is what we're envisioning. Bunch of pool stuff, drives back to their house.
And the dad walks back.
Exactly, of course.
So then the other question I have too is that this lot backs up to Crabapple Chase. And while Crabapple Chase is in Alpharetta, and we don't really care about them, I'm just kidding. While they back up to Alpharetta, have they expressed any concerns or anything like that?
The nice thing about that lot, the answer to your question is no. It's always been designed to be a pool lot. So it forever, since the community was built, was where the pool was going. We actually had a tree fall from the pool lot onto the fence, and we repaired the homeowner's fence. And he was asking me, when's your pool going to go in? That's going to look a lot better than what you have here. So I think that's just something that everybody's been expecting.
Have you got a percentage of people that are in the community that are supporting?
We estimate, based on our initial surveys, that we will have 40 people at least interested in joining the pool. We need
in your community, not talking about the one across the lake, just yours.
Our community has 40 occupied homes and 20 empty lots that have just been purchased by another builder, and apparently he's going to start building on the lots. So of the 40 homes, I would say we think overall we'll have 60%, which is why we feel like we need to invite Crabapple Crossing.
At the 20 homeowners that exist currently,
40.
There's 40 actual people living in your section.
40. There's 65 minus 20. 45.
45, okay. Out of the 45, how many of the 45 families have already said they want to participate? And did the people that are impacted closest to the lot, have you got them on board?
The people who built their homes next door to the pool knew that was going to be a pool when they built their homes. It's been designated a leisure pool area since before either of those two homes went in. So yes,
Okay.
And in addition to that,
It's always been the pool lot. So when those folks bought those homes, I don't know what lots they are, but on either side here,
65 and 60.
They've always been told that a pool was going there. It just never got built.
So the general concept I have is that the people impacted closest to it, that they know what they've gotten. That they don't buy something with thinking it's going to be just
Absolutely.
That they've always known. As long as they're on board. Parking and fire trucks are an issue that needs to be resolved on the city level of things. I think that whatever the city staff can recommend and be viable with, I wouldn't have a problem. Obviously, whatever the structure is going to look like will be a different issue for us. I would imagine that we have to come before us.
So the front elevation will come back?
Yes.
Okay.
We have that.
And then the landscape plan, this will come back before us again, I would suspect.
Yeah, we
But
have
from a overview, as long as the community's supportive, and that's what it was going to be for in the beginning, I personally don't see a problem with it for me. Anybody on the board have any pluses, minuses?
Nope. I know my mom's been wanting a pool for a long time, so
Well, your mom should get a pool. But
she tells me about it every day.
But the general goal that we have is to have the participation of the public that's going to be there.
Right. Oh, I'm the treasurer of the HOA, and I will tell you, it is in every conversation. I can't go to a Halloween party without being bombarded about, because I take the fall for it because I'm the person in charge of the money. So why don't we have a pool like it's all the money? And the answer to that question is, we didn't feel like it was possible with all of the variances we needed and things like that. And Richard has helped us realize that it is possible if we just take these few steps. So
Yeah, the only concern I really have is going to be one of the fire trucks and getting back and forth and the general use. And so as long as all those things have been met, you would.
Do you know if this is, and maybe you can answer this question, does it have to be handicap accessible? And if so, then do they have to accommodate with handicap parking at some level or some designated area in proximity to the building?
Yeah, the street does have on-street parking in front of this.
Okay.
So when we review it, if there's any ADA compliant issues.
The sidewalks would
we
be ADA compliant
yes,
already.
The site, the landscape architect already put some ramps and things in there that would comply with general ADA requirements, and the bathrooms, things like that. So if there is a parking issue, we would just designate one parking space in front of the pool
I guess that would be my
for
only
ADA
concern.
compliance.
And that would be part of the ADA compliance and all would come under permitting anyway, that they have to
Yes,
comply.
yeah, so when they go to review it, we'll make sure we
Yeah.
trip it. But they do have that on-street parking. And it, like the applicant stated, it is a very walkable community. We've been trying very hard to induce more walkability down there and to treat that as a real, work, live, play type of community. So it's, I think they've really accomplished it. And this site has always been designated. It's just the original developer kind of went in the wrong direction at one point and just kind of, at least he gave the property to the association so that they at least have that to start with. So I think they got a good start here.
Well, just like I said, those things being met, go in peace, get wet, have a great pool life.
Great.
You know,
Me and your mom.
Yes. Public comment.
Yeah.
Do we have any public comment about the pool? All right. Come on up. Thank you.
I want to apologize. I have laryngitis, so hopefully the microphone will help. My name is Lisa Middlestat. I live at 688 Dunbrody Drive. I live across the street from where the proposed pool is going in. I have never met Liz. I have never seen that drawing. I just moved in July. I came back from vacation and I saw a variance sign right about, I live, maybe my house is about 10 feet from the street, and the pool is right across the street. So when Liz is saying, not Liz, Chris, Miss Elliott, is saying that the community is on board, I have no idea what she's talking about. I did hear that the parent of a board member was on our street, and that's how this all of a sudden got to permission. That must be your mom.
No.
I love pools. I have had pools in my 2 prior homes. I'm not against the pool. I'm just against the size of the lot. This is a very, very, very small lot. It seems to be wide enough, but it's just very narrow, and I guess that's why there's not room for parking places. And as you said, these are all they're decent-sized homes on very, very small lots. So everything is 100 feet from each other. I mean, I'm way less than 100 feet from my neighbor. Everybody is less than 100 feet. These rules of 100 feet were obviously put in for a very good reason. And again, love to have a pool in the neighborhood. I just think they're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and we have one person saying we have all the community's approval. Well, let's see the signatures. Let's see a plan. Let's have everybody around it be able to say yay or nay. Is this a good idea? I mean, they have a rule. The city of Milton has a rule that a pool shouldn't be within 100 feet of a home. I would assume that this is for liability issues, insurance issues, right of quiet enjoyment issues. That's pretty close. I mean, it's less than 100 feet, but how far is it? Is it 50 feet? Is it 20 feet? It's very, very close. I will tell you, I have never heard the word pool. I'm not the one to the right or to the left. I believe those people, they have bigger houses than I do, and also bigger lots. They have their own driveways. I share a common driveway with the 10 people along Dunbrody Drive. I have grown children. I have no small children. We all have cars in our neighborhood. And the person next to me also just moved in, and they have 5 grown children, cars all over the place. And as you probably know, there's only parking on one side of the street. So the street kind of has a little indentation, and you can park your cars on that side of the street. If you park cars on both sides of the street, my son can get his Jeep through, but you can't get a fire truck through there. So there would have to be no parking on the one side of the street. Most of the people on my street on Dunbrody Drive, not the side that the pool is on, but the other side, because we're all cottage homes, do not have parking in our driveways. Some of the people can park this way in their driveway, but they don't have parking in their driveway. So generally, people fit one car in the garage and the other car on the street. So I do think parking is going to be a major problem. Yeah, it's great to say, oh, mom's going to walk up there with the 3 kids, but as a mom, you can't carry all the kids' floats and floaties and
Right.
also all their stuff. So I am very, very concerned about the parking. I'm also a CPA. I haven't seen the budget. I'm highly concerned about how 40 homes are going to pay for the pool. I just haven't seen it at all. This all came, as a surprise to me. When I bought the house, I asked about what was across the street, and they did tell me that the subdivision owned the lot and that that hopefully they would beautify it, which would be great because there is a fallen tree on the lot, and it's weeds. It's kept up a little bit, but I think it could be a wonderful community, additive. But a pool, I just would have to hope that you would take a lot more care and actually visit the spot. Can they fit it? Where are the people going to park? Is it going to be a noise problem for the people that are in those few homes around? I work from home, and I'm home all day. And my home, and my neighbor also, he and his wife also work from home. You're very, very close to that pool that's across the street. So I think all of these things need to be duly considered by the board before they just say, yeah, this is great, we all want a pool. Again, I'm not against pools. I've had pools in my 2 prior backyards, but there were plenty of room for them, and I didn't have to get a variance to do so. So they're asking for 2 variances: 1, to have no parking, and 2, to be less than 100 feet. And it's probably less than 10 feet from the houses on either side. My house is 10 feet from the street, and so the only thing that separates my home is just the street, so whatever the width of the street is. So again, I hope the board would just do a lot more review and perhaps consider something to the neighborhood that everybody can enjoy for a full year, not just those couple of months when, it's hot and we all would like a pool, but perhaps a neighborhood playground or a fire pit or some sort of community gathering place, because I do understand that the community does own that piece of property. It really is the only piece of property that the developer left to put anything on. It's just too skinny to put a pool and parking, and again, concerned about the liability, concerned about the noise, and concerned about the parking.
So in your opinion, is there a way to improve the plan that they showed right there to have a pool, or is it that...
I have never seen that plan, and all I saw was the back of it, unfortunately, when she was showing it to y'all. So I would be happy to
So, I guess I'm trying to get a sense as to, is there a way that this could be, assuming you saw it, improved by which you would be agreeable to the pool, or is it that you just, no pool, I don't want a pool at all?
Well, I'm not making the decision for the neighborhood, so you're.
I know. I'm just asking your opinion.
My opinion is I think I need, and I would hope that you would all need way more information before you turned down or made a variance on 2 very well thought out, codes that have been in place for a very long time.
And just so we talked about this earlier, this board does not necessarily approve or deny a variance, but rather we take y'all's input and try and offer suggestions to the applicant or to the Board of Zoning Appeals. They approve or deny any variances, and we try and say, hey, it should look like this. You should incorporate that. You should have trees. You should shrink the pool, enlarge the pool, whatever the case may be. That's kind of the role of this board.
My biggest concerns are no parking. I'm very concerned about the parking because, again, the people on our street don't have driveways to park in. So my car goes in the garage, my son's car goes in the street, and anybody else who has teenage kids, their cars go in the street as well. The parking is a problem, and you can only park on one side of the street if you want to get a fire truck through. So, when they build pools, I've never seen a subdivision pool with no parking, obviously, because you have to get a variance to do so. Now, if you had a playground or a fire pit, that's not something that you need to bring lunch and floaties and toys up to, and it would be a walkable thing. I think, some sort of a neighborhood amenity that the entire neighborhood could use, people with small children and people, and it could be landscaped and just a beautiful thing that could be used 12 months of the year, rather than you have this pool, a few people are able to use it for part of the year, and then it looks like a covered mess for the rest of the year. So,
But y'all do have a park, correct? Like behind your homes?
We have a, I guess you'd call it a green space. It's, the kids run and play tag in there, and people walk their dogs. It's got pathways.
But no, I would agree with you that the parking is of concern. I don't necessarily know that, and I like y'all's feedback, that another park is necessarily the way to go. That being
I was thinking more playground / fire pit, something that the neighborhood doesn't have. because it doesn't look great the way it is. It's just weeds and trees, and then the tree fell down. When I bought the house, I was told that the neighborhood owned it, and that it possibly could be used as some sort of a playground or a fire pit down the road. Never heard the word pool. Now, perhaps the people lied to me. I have no idea.
I've
I'm
always
just
known it to
telling
be
you
a
what
pool,
they told
but,
me.
But that's, I could be mistaken. That being said, Marty, my suggestion might be that between this meeting and the BZA meeting, that the applicant get with her neighborhood and have a meeting with her neighborhood, because it doesn't sound like at least you knew about it. I think that might
I'm
help
clueless.
ease some of concern, so that maybe if you guys have a meeting in the interim between then and kind of get maybe, I don't know if it's a petition or what it is.
Now,
but
I do have to
nonetheless-
say, in with all due respect to the board, I am new. I've only been there since July. So, but I think we've had 4 people on our street that have only been here since.
Right. I mean, there's
since
a bunch of new
July.
homes.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's
I don't know
perfectly-
how, because nothing was for sale forever, and then all of a sudden, half the street changed.
The point that I'd made earlier was about, I was trying to get down to how many existing houses there are, how many people are going to participate, how many want. Now, obviously, we're not legally privy to what the homeowners association bylaws are, but my suggestion would be is that as a board, we need to look at this in a broad perspective, and it's got to be what the community as a whole wants. And how many people support it, how many people don't, how many want it as a pool, how many want it as a fire pit. However it gets used is up to essentially the association in terms of parking and stuff of that nature.
I mean, I think
I
that
have mixed emotions, because the reality is it is a deemed walkable community. That being said, there's obviously parking spaces within walking distance of this particular site, but I think it's got to be something that the community itself, as an HOA, votes to support. And if they've got the majority rules that they want to have a pool, and
Well,
we
I
can
would
find a
imagine
way.
the HOA did vote it, otherwise she wouldn't be here. I mean, I would imagine the HOA has already voted.
Right. So I guess my point being is, in the setbacks, I understand. The problem that we have is it's still a walkable community. And I've built this type community personally, and I certainly am painfully aware by homeowners that have bought my communities about parking, them thinking that, there's only so much space that you've got, and we try to build these, and you give up something to get something. And I don't know that we as a board have an answer that satisfies everybody that's concerned. What we need to do is make sure the community as a whole supports it.
I agree.
What we need to do is make sure our fire trucks can come and go respectfully. We got to make sure that from a staff level, that your son's parking space isn't taken by a pool person that's.
Well, it's not my son's parking
But
space.
you know what I
It's
mean.
anybody's parking space
I know,
on
but
that
what I'm
street.
trying to say is that,
That you come home from work and everybody's at the pool, and you
but
can't
if
park
everybody's
in
at the
front
pool
of
and
your
they
house.
block your way to get in and out of your house, and you don't have a place for your
It
friend to
would
come and
definitely
park.
have to be no parking on one side of the street, but that could be easily done with no parking along.
Right.
But that is the problem. But the other problem is the 100 feet. I mean, why was that put in? It's obviously a liability concern. It's a right to quiet enjoyment. So the parking is one thing, but the proximity to these homes, and there's, it's not just on one side that like you were talking before, lot 11 and lot 13. There's people on both sides of it, and then there's me directly across, and then the people,
Absolutely.
the people to
So-
the
Absolutely,
right
and that's
left
why
of
when
me.
you notice those things that come up, one of the things I talk about is to make sure that the affected parties are good with what's going to be done. It's not perfect in that all the parties get everything they want, but in this circumstance we have, the 100-foot rule in a walkable community as you have is not workable, because if you stick with the 100-foot rule, you basically have nothing left of that lot. Is that right?
No, the lot is wide. It's just so narrow. That's the problem.
Right.
Everything is within, like you said, everything is within 100 feet. Again, I just think they're trying to put a square peg into a round hole.
Marty,
Would love a pool.
I would just suggest that in order to move this along, that the community does some form of, I know they've already had a board vote, but some form of stakeholders meeting, whatever you want to call it. And then when you guys, just as a recommendation, when you guys go to BZA, having as many letters from impacted homes that are, adjacent to, across the street from, that are in support or in opposition of the pool would be as beneficial as possible.
Is that the November 18th meeting
It'll
you're talking about?
I don't know what date it is. Angela might know. And then, maybe you guys can work together to try and find a way that it would be good. And to the extent you could put no parking signs on the side of the street, probably would be beneficial. But that might just push people to your side of the street. But nevertheless, at least attempts to eliminate the safety concerns.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we need to stay in line with that. We have an area that fire trucks and emergency vehicles can come and go. We need to not infringe upon a homeowner's ability to have a guest come up and pull in front of their house. We got to try to find a way, and the community needs to find a way to address that. Now, from a staff level, I don't know what we can really say other than it needs to be worked out with the HOA. And as far as the 100-foot goes, I mean, it's...
The only way to do that would be just no pool parking. So you'd have to do, ideally, what Chris said, and that's you have to drop your family off if you're going to be at the pool. That would be the only thing that would fix that problem. And then
My wife would be fine with that.
Yeah.
Again, I do think the 100 feet rule, the whole noise thing is going to be a problem too. That's why I would be in favor of some other type of non-pool thing where the cost is lower to the neighborhood, everybody could enjoy it 12 months of the year, and it could be beautifully landscaped and just something that they could have. The Halloween party could have been there. Just some sort of neighborhood area that is landscaped beautifully and just used by the whole community rather than a select few. So,
That
anyway.
point is well taken. I think, like we said, for y'all, have some form of community meeting. Make sure that everybody's on, or not. They don't have to all be on board for it to get approved, but make sure that all the concerns have an opportunity to be voiced. Having letters from the impacted parties that are in support or in opposition of it will be beneficial when they go to the actual approval or denial of this variance at the BZA.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Bob, you and Angela got all that? Okay. Next is 14250 Birmingham Highway, Lauren Dillon. Hello, Lauren.
Lauren Dillon, 14250 Birmingham Highway, Milton, Georgia. I just wanted to state that there is no construction, building, or demolition or changes to the buildings for this proposed variance.
I've actually been to your shop.
I've been there as well, a long time ago. You probably don't remember me.
I recognize your face.
And you would never know the shop is there.
No. You hardly see your driveway, so.
Especially in the summertime and a little bit more in the wintertime, but not so bad.
Anybody have any questions?
My only thought is that, here's a good example of somebody working from their home. They've got a great thing going. They're not impacting anybody. Their business is out of sight. There's no sounds. It's just, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't charge forward with approving this, endorsing it. It's just respect the fact that you guys are working from home and you're not bothering anybody, and I think it's as good as it gets.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions from any of the board members? Okay, Lauren, I'm going to open this for public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Charles Ling, 14220 Birmingham Highway. Me and my wife, I'm just a little nervous. My wife and myself, we're opposed to this. We live right next to them, and with the work that they're doing, there is no quiet enjoyment. There's, he has a press up there that he uses to hammer out a product, and it literally shakes our house. You know, so there's no quiet enjoyment. One day last week, he was using it almost 8 hours.
Did the Dillon enterprise exist when you bought your house, or did it happen afterwards?
It existed illegally at that location. He's been doing business out of there. It is not zoned for that. He has no business license to do work out of there. My understanding is the city is trying to get him into compliance so he can do some work for them. So it needs to be done somewhere else. We didn't hear anything for 2 years, and all of a sudden this year, the hammering. Gentleman about 1,000 feet from us, we live back 675 feet off the road. Gentleman about 1,000 feet down at the road said that he can actually feel his house shake too.
I'm confused. What's going on in this house?
Well, what exists here is that he has a metal building, concrete floor. He does sculpture type metal artwork, and obviously he does have equipment that that tamps down metal. I guess is that the right word?
Yeah, it's some type of hydraulic or steam hammer that he uses to shake metal.
I don't know what it is, but I was never aware that it ever impacted anyone because I've never heard anybody complain about
This is the first
vibration.
This is what we've heard just recently.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've been there 3 years, never heard anything, and all of a sudden, the past month, and we're concerned because he's moving his business there, shutting down his shop wherever it is in Alpharetta or Roswell, and he's moving his entire business to this location.
So the question I have for staff is, where do you go from here? I mean, how do we even recommend anything, honestly? Because, the reality of it is, I've actually seen the facility, and it's really nice, and it's really neat, and he does really wonderful, beautiful stuff. But how do we deal with the idea that it actually, from a vibration and noise level, that it really affects somebody 1,000 feet away? And if it does, not saying it doesn't, but if it does, what is the level of proof that it does? Like for example, if we go to build something, if we build a factory in the city, or somebody says you can only go to 93 decibels or whatever it might be, what are our rules, if we have any, that relate to this type of use and this type of impact that it might or might not have? So
We do have several recordings of the hammering. We've documented it well, video. We live about, I'm going to say 400 to 500 feet at the most from his shop. So we're very close. If you were at his shop, you could see our house.
are you to the left?
We're right down,
Are you closer to Birmingham Highway?
no, we're 675 feet back.
Is that your house?
I can't see the one.
To the left, I guess it's...
It's right to the left of Dylan's house. I mean, our driveways almost parallel each other, I guess you'd say, going up.
Your address is 4.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, if you look at the front view,
Yeah.
you see the house and then the bottom of the pavement.
Marty and staff, I got a question of clarity here. The applicant is requesting a variance as it relates to outside storage of their materials, their artwork, which is what we are, Board of Zone, or DRB, is looking at in terms of how does this aesthetically look? This gentleman is talking about the sound of the actual use of the property. Can you help me understand kind of where our jurisdiction or comments may lie? Because I think we're talking about technically approving or looking at one thing. He's talking about something, well, maybe completely and totally valid, something different. So I'm just trying to get a sense as to where we fit in this whole process.
Well, I took the term that operate an artist studio, which from my perspective, to be able to use outside storage in that building, which you can't see from the road even in the winter, doesn't make a lot of difference to me. Now, to operate the studio, does that mean that you operate the studio to sell, or is it actually a facility that, I know it's not manufacturing, but
Well, you could say it's manufacturing.
the manufacture of the sculptures themselves.
I'm looking at the 64-1843 Artist Studio. What the code was. And,
Right.
No outside storage, shall not generate traffic, sound, smell, vibration. I mean, already.
So I guess at this point for the board, you're not looking, since this is a courtesy review, you don't look so much at the request to say whether or not this is a good use for the property. You, as you know, focus on the aesthetics. So, that could be the sound. If there is a sound problem, how can we mitigate that? Can we mitigate that? Outdoor storage, like Rich said, what is that going to be? What's the impact that's going to be on the surrounding neighbors, and how can that be mitigated? So those are definitely two things. As a home-based business, they're not supposed to have customers coming and going. So that should not be an issue, but those are two things that you can look at and hopefully make suggestions for.
So sound and the outside stuff is within, obviously, what the appearance of the building is, but when you include sound in that as well?
I would consider that an aesthetic.
Can I address the outside storage?
Yeah, let's let him finish first, and then we'll let you come up, okay?
I'm done. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, listen, I understand your concerns, I understand where you're coming from, so.
Well, can I say something?
Yes.
And I live there too.
Okay.
And I'm sure that Mr. Dillon
Ma'am.
and his wife do
Ma'am.
beautiful work.
Can you speak your name?
My name is Cindy Cambus, 14220 Birmingham Highway. I'm sure they do beautiful work. I know it. I haven't seen it. But my husband works out of the home, and my daughter is doing online school, and I don't work. And this noise is irritating. He doesn't do it all day long. He doesn't. But when he does it, it's very irritating. My daughter can't concentrate. He's going crazy, going, shut up, shut up, shut up. It's annoying.
I understand.
Well, no, you don't. You don't live there.
No, I listen to chickens.
I don't mind. I love
don't
their
mind
chickens and their
chickens, yeah.
roosters and all that.
Don't mind the soccer fields across the road.
Don't mind the soccer
Don't mind
fields.
the highway.
Don't
That's
mind
you.
I don't care if they build a storage shed. That's fine.
The storage shed's not the issue.
It's not the issue. It's
So
somebody's
part of our
property
purview
run
is
business
it,
out of.
the question I got for staff is, part of our purview, like Richie said, is it part of it's going to be the noise issues, the vibration issues, or do we try to just focus on outside storage?
Angela says sound is included in aesthetics. Take that for what it's worth.
So let me ask, that being said, not to take a side with either party, back to the question of what is the level of sound that is acceptable, and do we have a rule to that?
We do have noise pollution rules. I couldn't tell you what the maximum levels are off the top of my head. And we have had other petitions that went before the council where they had an expert come out to the site and, blasted the music and took samples, across the street at the neighbor's house. So,
If we knew this was temporary, like building a house next door or across the street, what they're doing right now, or paving in front of Birmingham Highway, if you know it's temporary and there's an end to it, I don't have a problem with that at all whatsoever.
Right.
But there is no end in running a business in my backyard.
Is it the sound or the vibration that's causing it?
Sound and vibration. Yeah, it actually shakes the windows on the house.
For the applicant, is there any kind of dampening that can be put on the equipment?
Well, one thing that we were at the community, the neighborhood meeting here a week or two ago. One thing that we discussed doing to perhaps alleviate some of that, especially in the fall and the winter time when the leaves do not provide some of the sound buffer that it does in the summer and spring, that we would definitely be willing to put some evergreen trees along that property line. Also, Michael can close one of the bay doors to the workshop that faces their property, and that should dampen some of the sound.
That's a steel building, isn't it?
It is. And
It
there
doesn't
is
have
some
any insulation in the walls?
It's
It
insulated.
is.
And as regards to the outside storage, those of you that have been there, there was metal kind of scattered around on your drive up, and basically what Michael did was move it all. It's very neat and tidy. It's right in front of the building that faces my house and the woods. So really, unless you drive up that driveway, it really is to their benefit, the outside storage. Not that they could see the metal.
Well, the storage
anyway.
itself
I don't think the
doesn't seem
storage
to
is
be
the
the
issue.
issue.
I think, so, Marty, my thought would be, in order for us to recommend that BZA approve the outside storage, that the applicant do some form of sound prevention within that metal shed. I don't know what that is, but in order for, kind of contingent upon it, the only way you're going to get the outside storage is if you create some type of sound whatever on the inside of that or outside of it, because I don't think Leland Cypresses are going to stop the sound, so that they don't hear it, so that it is at a at a normal level of sound. And I would encourage those that are in opposition to, I know you said record it, but get a thing you can figure out what the decibel level is during the day, and then bring that with you to BZA so that you can demonstrate, that it's at 40 decibels, 6, whatever it is, so that they can be aware of that when they go forward. I think that's all I got right now.
I'll also state that he's not moving an entire shop. Nothing will really change. What he is working on now is temporary. It's not something that he is going to be able to sustain day in and day out. The sculptures that he produces are one of. He probably does one a year of the large-scale sculptures. The smaller sculptures do not entail nearly as much hammering. I'm sure that, he's been doing this for years, and like they said, they have not until recently really heard a lot of the vibration. And on a piece that big, and I timed it myself the other day when he doesn't forge every day. He needs a lot of preparation. For the forging, he has to heat the metal up. It takes probably 30 to 40 minutes for that piece to heat up, and then you can only sustain that for, I timed it 6 minutes of hammering, and then you got to put it back in the forge. So when he says that he's been hammering for 8 hours, I timed in an hour and a half time period, there was about 15 minutes of hammering. So as far as the noise and the sustained level of noise, it is not something that, goes on all the time, all day.
Right. Yeah,
and like I said,
I can understand. I guess my concern is that if the sound, I think most folks will recognize can drive folks crazy. So while the storage isn't necessarily the issue, I would recommend that even if it's one hammer over the decibel level that is allowed by the city in terms of their ordinance, that in order for the outside storage to be approved, that you would need to do some type of soundproofing or demonstrate that you are about to invest in some type of soundproofing before you go to BZA. And again, this board, we don't approve or deny.
No, I understand.
Just a recommendation, and I would tell the those that live next door to record it, get a decibel reading level, so that you can bring that with BZA.
Can I ask another question?
Certainly.
If we were not asking for the outside storage variance, would that be an issue?
Yes.
I mean, I think it would still be an issue because you would be in violation of, in theory, I don't know what the decibel level is, right? So you could be under it, and so that's a totally different story. But if you are above it, but with one strike of a hammer, then you are in theory in violation of it. And so I think, and especially when it is clearly impacting their quality of life, we have to try and get to a point by which you guys can still run your business, because that is important. They can still live their life. He can work from home. She can do her online test. Everybody passes, and we're all happy. I think that any strike of the hammer that's above that maximum decibel level, and if Angela will look that up, will you please, and let them know what that level is.
And who do we get to measure that?
There are, well, I know that somebody can do it. I don't know who. What
It'd be an
sound
engineering
people?
firm.
There's somebody that because they had it tested at the special events facility at the bed and breakfast down the road. So
Okay.
But yeah, get that tested, or have ask them to have that. It doesn't really matter, but I think that my recommendation, Marty, would be that in order for the outside storage to be approved, they would have to do some form of soundproofing. And even in the event that they don't, I think that for this to continue, they need to do some type of soundproofing. I just think that that's not too much to ask, quite frankly. You can still do your business. You make an investment, you keep it quiet. Your neighbors will love you. Maybe they'll buy some art from you, and everybody's happy.
I understand.
Well, we also have to deal with the vibration issue as well, which to me is probably just as big a.
But if you reduce the sound, then you will reduce the vibration. The vibration is a result of the sound.
Well, they're sitting on a granite rock that runs. Quite frankly, it runs a long ways apart at Stone Mountain. That raining, it's at my house. And the
Well, I
only
mean, we
reason
get
know about that
vibration
rock
from
is-
the highway when a truck goes over Chicken Creek Bridge.
Yep.
I feel it in my house.
It's the rock.
So,
Because it travels a long ways.
It does.
I mean, listen, I certainly feel their pain because I know what it's like to live next to something I really don't want to be there. The last thing I want is a rooster at 5:30 a.m.
I just did want to somewhat reassure them that, it's not a big business that's going to be moving in there. Right now, he's operating the sculpture as a hobby, and, he had produced the railings in the other shop in Ducktown. The railings are much smaller hammers and do not require, will not produce more noise. And again, it's a limited amount of work that he's doing out of there, so that we're not going to be bringing more tools, more machines, more. I just kind of wanted to reassure them in that respect that it's not going to be a shop closing and then all of that moving in.
My suggestion would be is that we defer this until we can get a definite answer as to what the noise levels are, what the vibrations are.
Now that they know that y'all requested that now y'all want to hear the decibels and all that stuff, now that they're aware of that, how are we going to get that information? Knowing that they know we're going to do this, so they'll quit doing it. So then we don't have anything to bring them back.
At some point, in order for them to move forward, they're going to have to, whatever the mode of this is done, it's going to have to be something from an engineering standpoint that they have to come up with. They have to define it. I would suspect. Is that
And we'll
not?
need that information for the next CCB.
Right, so they're going to be completely quiet until we have another meeting, and then we have no information to bring you.
No, what I guess I'm trying to say is the equipment that they operate within the facility will have to have a scientific.
Do they pay for that?
No, they do because they're the one making the application. They'll have to provide that they're complying within whatever that statute is. Unfortunately, I don't know what it is. I don't know what the decibel is. I don't know if there's a statute on record for vibration, but if there is, we need to know what it is.
Okay.
And so we can't make a recommendation without knowing exactly what within the guidelines that we can do. Okay. The only thing we can offer is that we need to find out, the staff will find out how we go about this.
Okay. And I think that at the end of the day, if they are, let's say you go out and test it, and they're hitting their piece of metal, and you're standing there with them, because they're obviously going to have to come down to your house to test the decibel level, you'll be able to either say, yeah, that's as loud as it normally is, or that's not as loud as it normally is. And if they don't go to as loud as it normally is, then you'll be able to come back in here and say they weren't testing it as loud as it normally was. So, I mean,
each piece of equipment has a noise stamp to it and a vibration stamp. So if they actually go out and get a study done, much like hydrology or anything else might be done on a creek, they operate equipment piece A. Equipment piece A is this noise level and this vibration level. Equipment B is this much noise, this much vibration level. And so whatever we can do that will make it precise so that it's not necessarily, their opinion is going to be it's quiet. Your opinion is it's noisy or it's real noisy. And so instead of making it a matter of opinion, we need to get it down to a matter of this is
matter of science. Specifically
what it is. This is what the rules are. They got to live within the rules.
And will the engineer make recommendations on?
The recommendation may be that, for example, I assume the equipment's sitting on solid concrete foundation, which is probably 6 inches thick and at least. And you take that big platform, it acts like a resonating device. It may come down to that an engineer that specializes in noise levels and vibrations, that's from an industrial standpoint, will come along and say, you need to put these on some rubber mats and some wood pilings or whatever it might be, because that will soften the dead and get it browned underneath. Because what we have right now is a talented guy that has come along and put his equipment on a piece of concrete, who happens to be sitting on a piece of granite, and so therefore it resonates and it's loud and it's everything that you say that it is. So there may be some answers that will help you.
Absolutely.
And, they're probably really great neighbors. I mean, I've only met them
They're
once.
Very nice people.
And so what happens is we just have to try to get to a viable resolution that they can afford, that you can live with, that the city can do. So as a board, all we're recommending is whatever the regulations are from the city, whatever they are, that we ask them to comply with that.
Absolutely.
And, the outdoor storage, you could care less about the outdoor storage, probably, because you can't see it. And the reality is that's not the issue. The issue is the one you brought up. So if we go about this, instead of making it be a matter of he said, she said, or make it matter of factual. If it's 114 decibels, then something needs to be done about it. And there are, you can go next to a Ford bumper plant and you can't hear a cotton picking thing. And that bumpers and the steel they make the frames with and all that stuff's got to be tough and noisy. And so there are ways to make this be quieter. There are things they can do, and there are rules that we need to comply with, and that's what I suggest that we do.
So deferring it would just mean that we need to have that study done?
I would defer it from right now. Have you come to staff, find out what the rules are. I would imagine staff could make some recommendations of the type of engineering firm that would be able to provide you for this particular equipment study, if you will, on whatever particular piece of equipment is, and they will come up with suggestions for you. And really it's going to come down to an industrial mechanical engineer, most likely. And because they will know that forging equipment that you have came out of a factory somewhere, I would imagine. And or a field. But when it was built for a factory. And so that factory means an engineer designed it. An engineer knows exactly what the force is, exactly what the noise is. And
so we need to have that information
Well, if we're tabling it, then you'll come back here 1 month from today.
So you're saying you want them to
Is
get
that what you're saying, Marty?
I do. I think we should defer it, allow the staff to be able to know what the ordinances are as it relates to noise abatement and vibration. Give you the opportunity to know what that is and to do a little bit of research to determine what we can do to mitigate those two things which they brought up as concerns. I mean, the facility
you
being
won't,
there.
You won't go to BZA next. You'll come back here, do the study, get with Angela, do the study, come back here.
Get it done in a month. They may not be able to get it done in a month.
This was just the design of the building and construction, non-construction, so I thought that we would broach all these subjects in 2 weeks and then again.
Well, with
giving you a
Angela's
heads up on
with
it.
Angela's ruling on sound as aesthetics, then I guess it came into our purview. I didn't know that either. So we live and we learn, but nonetheless, yeah, come on back.
But by us not making a motion of anything or making a recommendation, our only recommendation is to defer it till you can get the appropriate information from staff so you'll know which direction you've got to walk to be able to get where you want to go. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next, 3501 Bethany Bend. Come on down to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Steve Rowe. I'm with AEC, 50 Warm Springs Circle, Roswell, Georgia, and I'm here representing Bayesian American Properties on this rezoning. Just to give you some quick overview, this is the intersection of Morris Road, McGinnis Ferry, Bethany Bend comes around this way. The traffic circle you see is actually a part of a development that's happening in Forsyth County that is coming online that will be in place probably in the next 3 to 6 months. It's gone through the final areas of approval. Carter Lucas is aware of it, and Tim Allen is now issuing the permit with the county. What we are doing is adding a leg or a spoke to that roundabout, bringing it into a property that is very oddly shaped. It's an assemblage of about 3 different properties with floodplain in this area. We've got the grade sloping towards that. Sewer will be served from this piece. As you come in, we've created a nice park element with garages to the rear, the fronts of the buildings facing front. We've addressed Bethany Bend with the fronts of all the units facing out with some common sidewalks between and then tying strategically into the main development. We do have a few areas where we did have to do garages to the front, which is represented on the architecture to here. Over here in this end, towards the back along this area. And those are and then one area up in this area. We're maintaining 3 large oaks, 2 36-inch oaks and 1 28-inch oak along here. And that gives us a nice vista across this stormwater management area into this nice wetland area, which has some grassed areas, some large trees down to the creek that flows all the way down to the creek. Do you have any questions on the site, comments?
Just so I'm clear on the location.
Yes, sir.
This is like to the south, I guess, at least on this board. There's like a vacant field there right now.
Right over.
It's across the street.
Across the street. That's the wetland mitigation area for Deerfield.
Okay.
And this is about, I'd say about a half mile from where 400 goes. Or
If you
where
go to McGinnis Ferry,
Yeah.
from here, make a left.
Okay.
It's on that corner. You
I think I
go
know.
past the daycare.
The
and it's next
Red
to it.
Apple Daycare is right here on the corner, if that gives you any context. This used to be an old horse farm.
I want to start off with my overview of what I travel in front of this piece of property 5 times a day. Though I do not agree with how Forsyth has laid their part out, and I may not be able to politically say that, but quite candidly, nobody has done anything to really mitigate, because Strickland Road right here, that's really not the problem.
Right.
The problem's down at McGinnis Ferry where Bethany dead ends. You know, the other thing is 7 point whatever it is units per the acre. One of the things we're trying to get away from is the incredible density that's around. You know, I'd like to personally see less density. I would personally like to see that the developers of the site across the road from you and your site, that y'all help deal with the issues that are going to be at McGinnis and Bethany. Do you know how long it takes to get from my business is on Tidwell? At 4:55 every day, it takes me 15 to 20 minutes to get past that stop sign.
Now, the one thing I will tell you is this stop sign, in the same time that this is happening, will be converted to a traffic signal.
I don't care. Personally, I don't care, because the reality is that's not going to fix the traffic light's not going to fix the problem. I mean, the problem is if y'all are going to put all that stuff over there, it's going to require a 4-lane road. It's going to require a way to get to the interstate appropriately, and honestly, not after the fact. I mean, the reality of it is, I understand that challenging property, but that's a lot of units to the acre. You know, have you ever thought about what if the fire department has to take a ladder truck, for whatever reason might be, and take a ladder truck and pull it in there and put a fire out and then try to get their ladder truck out?
I'm more worried about getting them in. I'll get them in. Getting it out is not as big
Well, I'll
a
tell you,
problem.
the fire department's worried about getting in and out. You know, I've built stuff in this density level personally. And I know that, you know, the reality of it is that we, as developers, want to put as much density as we can possibly get because of what we had to pay for the dirt to begin with. I mean, that's part of it, and getting a yield.
That's part of it. That's
You know, but the reality still comes down to the bigger issues are not really resolved, and resolved is going to be how to get in and out of it. You've got one entrance into 70, how many units? 77?
77.
77 units with 2 cars is 14, that's 158, whatever it is. Figure out the math, but 158 vehicles coming and going. I just think the density is too high, and I think that having T models in a development, my personal taste doesn't like those. You know, and it's, you know, maybe I'm taking some of my vengeance about driving through that area on you. But
I didn't notice if you were.
But the reality of it is it just seems like none of the developers want to take and really deal with the real issue, and the real issue is at McGinnis and Bethany. You know, I could care less about, personally, I'll care whenever all those houses get built over there. But I will tell you, I come down to drive this way to work every day. I drive that way home. I go through there at lunch. I just can't fathom all the development that's going to go in that corridor with telling me that a roundabout is acceptable.
It's not the fix, but again, we inherited the problem. You inherited the problem. It's not anything we've done specifically. It's actually a lack of planning by Fulton County 20 years ago.
Oh, I understand.
And we're all
However,
living with that.
But we got to be
nightmare.
responsible at this end, at this point. I mean, what do? Just continue to go down the same path? That this is a terrible path.
No, and I believe there are things moving forward with if the interchange happens at McGinnis Ferry and 400, then McGinnis Ferry will obviously have to be 4-laned all the way through, which makes a lot of sense, which will improve this intersection. Again, we're talking 8-10 years down the road. I can speculate, but what I'm trying to deal with is this property here and developing this parcel and trying to make the best development we can aesthetically, you know, functionally and such. I can't plug another curb cut anywhere because it doesn't make safe sense to get in and out, especially with what's going on across the street. This makes the most sense for this development, whatever happens here.
I've got a couple things I wanted to bring up. So I actually drove in the back end of this property into that subdivision that's on the back. And
This one here or
no,
this one?
right there,
This one.
yes.
Okay.
And those 3 houses to the right, which are right adjacent there. You've got 77 homes here, and 17 of them are in the buffer. Why?
In this case, it's mainly a function of the depth coming through here.
I disagree. I think it's a function of the orientation of the homes. If you look across the homes right across the front entrance, you've got them turned this way. If you were to figure out a way to turn them this way, you wouldn't be in the buffer. And then all the homes up in the upper right-hand corner, I mean...
Actually, we're not in there actually is no buffer. It's a setback in this area.
I'm sorry. No, you're right. Setback, not buffer. They're all in the setback.
Correct.
Why? Setbacks are for
Well,
a purpose, right?
Again, it was a function of the development. This was TR and zoning, and at the time that we had it approved, before they rewrote the code, then these were within those guidelines. In the rewriting of it, Robin had recommended to ask for variances to those and work it out. I really can't compress that anymore. To lose the units, then it doesn't make that area as robust and dynamic from a residential standpoint. The park kind of loses its emphasis.
Another concern I had is I drove the entire Bethany. I know you did this as well, Marty, is that there are other townhomes up the road, and you've designated those on the map here, and every one of them have some kind of visual buffer up along the road, and it looks like because you're trying to jam them in here that, I mean, in your depiction there, you show a few trees, but I don't consider, spaced out trees right along the road as any kind of significant visual buffer.
We're not trying to buffer the road. We're actually trying to address the road with the fronts of the units. It's a more urban style. It's actually in keeping with the way the code was rewritten.
So the front of the home is going to be facing Bethany.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're not turning our backs to that. We're actually addressing the road, trying to create that street.
So that this is not alley, that's sidewalk.
No, I get it. But if you look at all these other homes up here that are up the road further, there's space, there's berms, there's fencing, there's a lot of different things. Whereas these are right up on top of the road.
I think they're trying to achieve pretty much what's across the street from us now.
That's a closer rendition of what we're looking to do. Yes.
I think facing Bethany is an important step. Road view is going to be important to us. The things that I would want is I'd like to see how this incorporates not just on your piece of paper, but an overall of what Forsyth is putting across the street as well, so that we could really get a bigger picture of how this street's going to look, because we really right this minute. Obviously, we know how close yours is going to be to the road, but we don't know how close theirs are. We don't, it's hard to visualize driving down that street once the two groups get together and build what they're going to build.
I can give you a high-level overview. I've got a small piece, if you'll allow me to hand it out, but right across the street here, this is going to be multifamily units within 20 feet of the right-of-way.
Right.
This is going to be more of a commercial development. There's a proposed grocery store going on this corner with another about 100,000 square feet of village-style retail down here. Off the page in this direction, there's another 281 single-family units being done by Jolly Development that is under construction now. So there's several things happening in this corridor. Again, this being a part of their overall master plan of the traffic improvements, this being a second, and the third being the main intersection closer to the bridge along McGinnis Ferry.
Yeah, personally, I just don't see how it's.
Marty, is your biggest concern the number of homes?
The biggest concern that I've got is that the way that it looks from the road view, I know we can work through that. the things that I would like to see no more than 6 units to the acre. It'd be my mindset. And I would like to see some collusion between the north, the other side of the road and how that's really going to develop out, how they're going to put, how is the entrance to your property going to tie to the entrances to the commercial developments going to be across the road, how that's all going to deal. I mean,
This is still very preliminary, but what she's going to be handing you is kind of a combined view of what's happening in Forsyth County with this project shown. And what you'll really notice is this project is dwarfed by what's happening across the street.
I know.
The impact of what this will bring to the traffic is a drop in the bucket to what's happening across the street.
The sad truth is what's being developed across the street really becomes Milton's problem and North Fulton problem, not a Forsyth County problem. Because those guys are not going to McFarland to get on the interstate.
Right. Sure.
Corey Jones, 125 Andover Drive. I'm one of the developers. I just wanted to point out that we are currently entitled for 98 units on 5 acres of this land, which is 19.8 units to the acre, that we're entitled to build right now. And so we're asking for a lesser density from 98 to 77 on twice the space.
I understand. I understand your point of view. I mean, the bottom line is one great thing about America is that we get our point of views, and what I have to think is not binding. This is not something, it's not a yes or no for me.
Marty, I think there's some public comment too, if you'll entertain.
Okay. From my perspective, so I'm going to open it up for public comment as well.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Mansur Khan. We bought the house last year right across the Morris Road and Hidden Forest subdivision. So the 3 homes in the corner of the map.
I know what it is.
And that's me, and then I also have my neighbor with me here. When we bought the house, we see that the backside is literally there's no construction there, and there is some subdivision behind that. So we thought it's more like a forest or reserved area. And without knowing much detail about this plan, with the county people working on that area, we realized that some construction is going to happen. And for me to understand is what's going to happen to my backyard. Am I going to have a townhome in my backyard, or the reserve area is going to be not reserved anymore? Trying to understand, how this project is going to impact my backyard.
Could you point out your house on the map right there? Can you see that?
He's up on the right.
I believe.
Hidden Forest is on your.
Okay.
Yeah, and he lives next door.
Okay. Yep.
That's actually not been a concern, is less the density.
So you're probably most impacted by them
because I think the property
asking for the variance on
my
the setback.
backyard. Yeah, sorry, my backyard is that wood starts right there, and then Fritz is just next to me.
Yeah, Marty, my concern is less the traffic, although it is a concern. Man, that is big. Less the traffic, and more these folks with because these are in clearly this lot 61, really lot 61 through 68, other than maybe 67, are all in the setback and all going to be right in these guys' backyards. I don't know if really what you could probably do is eliminate lots 60 and 69, bring the whole road forward, and then you can probably keep 61 through 68 all within the setback. That would be my only, at least on this suggestion. I'm less concerned about the traffic because it's not necessarily their fault for the traffic, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion.
I understand.
I agree with that. I think traffic is what it is, and by approving this, obviously we're contributing to the issue. But, for me, it is really more about the setback and the consideration that, when they built your house in Hidden Forest, they didn't ask for variances. They built their house with the established laws that are in place, and you'd hope that your adjacent neighbors do the same.
Yeah.
And not ask for a variance to theirs. So I would hope that, these guys could figure out some way to make it work without having to violate the setbacks.
Yeah.
61 is completely in the setback.
I know. There's
just one more point to that is, in that Hidden Forest subdivision, all the homes in front are having townhomes, and there are 12 single-family homes which are having this reserve area, like more like the backyard. That's why they are single-family, and all the rest are townhomes in the subdivision.
Right.
Okay. I think that's my comment.
Actually, it'd be cool to put retail on the front of this whole street, on the front side, but
Keep the business in Milton.
keep business Milton, and then heck, you eliminate the number of homes. You're gonna have commercial there anyway. But anyways, for me, the biggest concern is those homes in the back section there.
Hey, my name is Fritz. I live in the 11334A Flamingo, right next to Mansour. I just have a few comments regarding about the new subdivision. Like he said, when we moved in there, we liked the privacy area where we share the 3 homes on that T area. The other part is the area, you probably guys know that it is in the flood zone. I just have a concern when they, with the new subdivision, they're probably going to increase the risk of higher flood, I would think, because probably less waterways going there with the wetland and stuff like that, and also the traffic, like you mentioned, because I gone through the area, Morris Road, Bethany Bend, and the Strickland, every day. So I just want to express my concern about that.
I think that for us, how they end up looking, we can address. I don't know that it's in our purview that we can talk about the number of units or any of those things.
Can we, Angela? Okay, can we at least discuss these ones that are in the setback?
I think the setback is.
The number of units is
Setback in sense of buffering, the layout of the
Subdivision.
subdivision in general.
Because what are 17 units are inside a setback?
17 or 18.
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I just for these folks who live in Hidden Forest, my preference would be to move some of these forward so that they are not in their backyards, and then create if there's not a screening from landscaping, put that in the back there. That would be my only suggestion.
As I've repeated several times tonight, that the whole idea is that when you buy a piece of property that you're going to live in as a personal residence, or any piece of property, whatever the use may be, that you buy it with the intent that the use is going to be what you bought's what you thought you bought. So the right, quiet enjoyment. So, my only recommendation would be to see lesser density. Try to get away from the T form of roads, if possible. And obviously, it has nothing, traffic doesn't have anything to do with whether it looks good or not, and whether it works. But traffic is one of my biggest concerns that I've got.
It already is pretty bad over there with that.
Listen, if I don't leave work before 4:30, I'm gonna wait 20 minutes at McGinnis and Bethany. It's the truth. It backs all the way up to Tidwell.
Every direction.
Yeah, every direction.
Yeah. And we just live around the corner. So, yeah.
I feel your pain. I do it every day.
So that's it.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any comment from the board?
I would just say, figure out a plan to honor the setbacks. I think they can do that. I think it would get, if they drop 17 or 18 out of 77, that would put them at 6 per acre. That would put them back down to 60 on 10 acres.
Well, that would be my wish. you know, as he just said, that he could build 98 on 5 acres. I don't know whether he can or he can't, and it's not my debate, but the reality of it is we all got to try to be good stewards to the community that we got. And I'm not saying that lesser density is always the answer to everything, but I would like to try to get away from that T format. And I've said what I'd like to have said. Yes, sir.
Can I ask one more question? So what do we do from here to understand what's going to happen in future? Like, what's the next decision? Do I need to follow something online? I just happen to know that some official was visiting yesterday, so that's how we know it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even known that there is some construction happening in my backyard and that there is a hearing today. So what I need to do to understand, to keep track of next steps.
This goes to the BZA next, right?
No, this is for city council. I don't have the exact date, but you can call Robin McDonald.
City Council.
December 15th.
December Planning Commission.
So it'll go, have you done your CZIM yet?
Yes,
We did
last week.
Last Tuesday.
So they have 2 more hearings. It'll go to the planning commission on November, what was the date?
November 19th.
19th. And then it'll go to the city council on December 15th. And we have a calendar online.
Okay.
And you can just click on the date and you see the agenda.
We're having a community meeting also that we do. You'll be invited, you get something in the mail.
Okay. And then the website you said is the city council?
The city council website has a calendar, and
Okay.
you can click on the agenda on those dates.
Thank you.
Within, well, not miles, it's within several hundred feet. Yes, yes.
You should get it.
Yeah, look at it.
You should get it.
You're on the back.
Okay, public comment is ended, and there's no more comment from board. Let's move on to number 8, which is new business. I think we got coming before us the review of the new approval guidelines and penalties for the demo permits. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hey, can we take a 2-minute restroom break? I'm about to take some blood here.
So you didn't think I already did it?
No.
You think they know where they stand? That's that.
All that stuff in our center. Put your hand out. Your hands up. One goes to Rich down there. And then left over. I know it's like crap coming through.
You want to put another 77 units, right? And you only got one entrance.
I know. Imagine waiting there.
And can you imagine trying to get a big fire truck down those roads? And the thing about it is, where the city needs to stand up, it's going to be on the fire trucks. It's just ridiculous. You just heard him threaten us, but they could put 98 units on 5 acres.
Okay, go ahead, run that by.
You know what I said, though? I said the appropriate thing. I don't know what you can and can't do. I am.
They can pull that whole backside of that thing in, you know, when the first 2 they showed, it's, they're gonna face this, or are they gonna face them this way? They're gonna turn,
Just trying to grab them in there.
they're just trying to jam them.
Were you okay with the way that I handled the historic house?
No. I know he wasn't.
No. But you know. intelligence to know what it is.
Before he ever shows up here, go look at this. That guy's been around the block a few times. He should know that.
I can tell you why. Trees are not the issue.
What do you mean?
The issue is whether it really is a redeemable historic preservation code.
If he would have had Mark's blessing on this thing before he came before us, we probably would have let it go through, right? No?
No, but those people, when that lady spoke in opposition, that would have slowed it down.
And see, and the thing about it is when you have a public opposition to something, you got to do the due diligence. And it's not whether you agree with one side or the other.
No, I get it. No, I agree with you now. I think about that. What I just said. You're right.
You know, it's
the fact that came up is something to be discussed.
Now, I don't necessarily know that she has a valid claim.
And I told her that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I basically said the truth.
The house will actually get moved. The historical park, you put it somewhere else in Milton. If they wanted to.
Yeah, but he don't want to pay for it.
He's not going to pay for it.
Yeah.
I'm ready whenever you are, my dear. I thought I was waiting on you.
Oh, no.
Y'all could throw things at me and I will move forward.
Okay, so before you, we have proposed revision to the, I guess, the DRB demolition powers. Basically, we want to be able to give the board some teeth to put into the vote that you take on the demos that come before you. Because as you know right now, even if you say no, they can go the next day and tear it down without any penalties or repercussions or anything like that. So we're looking at this in two parts. We want to give the applicant clear guidelines as to whether or not a demo application would be approved. So first we did criteria. And just, you know, since the main point of saying no to a demo, like we saw tonight, would be a structure with historic potential. So I took the wording straight from the Historic Preservation Ordinance, which has already been vetted and approved and all that by the council, and that's what I'm giving to you to consider. So the first part is the criteria for approving a demolition, which you can read there. Age, whether or not there's something significant about the building, whether or not it's in decent enough shape to be used for something else. So those would be some of your criteria. And then the next part would be the penalty provisions. And that could be anything from being cited by the city and winding up in court to not, for example, if you take the building down after the DRB has said no, then one penalty would be that you won't be able to develop the property for 5 years. So, would you take a look at that?
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
So if they do this out of not knowing I need a demolition permit, I just tore it down, and now somebody just came out and said, no, you need a demolition permit, are we going to say, no, you can't develop there 5 years?
Well, but I thought it
Yes.
had to come before the DRB. And
Well, he's saying,
after
what if there's a oops and it gets taken down without following proper procedure?
It'll be on a case-by-case basis
Right.
what the remedy is. Because we can elect to either enforce these things, or we can deem there was no redeemable value to what they tore down anyway. You know, if
Just a shed or something falls.
yeah, I mean, it's
Haul it away.
the thing that we can't get into is to the position that we say that we're going to do if you do this, we're going to do an absolute this. There is no such thing. It has to be where, a board or the city or the staff has some leeway for pragmatic decisions. I mean, the reality is there are some people that live in the city of Milton that's lived here before it was Milton. They decides that they got a barn that's ratty and they're tired of messing with it, and they go out there and take a bulldozer and tear it down. And then somebody says, well, you know what? You needed a permit to tear that down. Well, the reality is if you stuck to this form in its truest way, we could enforce they couldn't get a curb cut, or we could enforce that. But it has to be a decision that needs to be made on a case-by-case basis.
So, yeah, I guess so the question is then do we have, let's say that someone does violate it, do we have the authority to place one of these restrictions, or is that on y'all to place one of the restrictions?
That would be on the community development. We would cite them.
And then you would determine your penalty is A3A. No building permits for 5 years.
However, they could come to a variance to us to mitigate this penalty if it was an automatic penalty. Is that correct?
Well, the A through D are specifically if they've come before you and said no, and you said no, and they went on and tore the building down anyway. So those would specifically address that issue.
Okay.
We also have the option of civil action as an additional remedy, where we would cite them and they'd wind up in court.
It all sounds good to me. Bob, do you have any opinion? I assume you helped write this.
No, I think it's,
Input.
It's comprehensive. It gives the board the authority that the planning commission is really looking to review all that have to do a decision demolition to come before you.
Right.
Like the one that came tonight, if the board deemed that it had some significant value, I think this would give more teeth to your decision whether you wanted the building to be relocated or saved, or at least, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing.
So,
some of these things might have some historical value inside, or maybe we just document the building better.
So,
there's just a lot of things I think with this
Would we have the
authority, the board can say, well, look, all right, we'll grant you the demolition, but, we want you to document this building for historic reasons, or to try to save something, or try to relocate it. I think it gives you more authority.
Has Jared reviewed this? Has the city attorney reviewed this?
Would we also
One
have
of
the
my
power
questions-
to vacate a penalty? To vacate a penalty or remove a penalty? Would we also
I would
have that
suspect
power?
they would come to us for a variance to this, and then we would be able to vote whether we want to grant them a variance that would not require this. I think is the appropriate word, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I'm just wondering, do we really need 5 years? That's an awful long time. That's
well, and then my other question is that it says that these penalties shall be imposed on persons or entities found to have violated this article. No building permits on the construction site. But what if Marty? I know he's going around knocking down everything, knocks something down. He gets the penalty of 5 years, but then sells it to me because this was imposed on a person or entity. I'm a separate person, separate entity. What do you do in the event that the person wants to sell the property?
that problem has actually come up already.
The sale would be subject to the existing
conditions.
Yes. But that's already come up because it came up on foreclosed property and fences. Remember that, Bob? I promoted, or we voted on, putting up a fence that didn't, because the guy had already put the fence up. So our only option was to tear the fence down. That's what code would have required us to tell him. However, nice guy, and the fence he put up is a nice fence. It's not a dog-eared fence. Granted, it doesn't look exactly like it.
This is one of my neighbors, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And we let him get away with it when we could have pushed to have it the other way.
But that wasn't a demo.
No. On the demos, though, the problem with the demos is a lot of guys doing these demos are pretty smart. And if they realize that there aren't any penalties for them,
Yeah, I
it's
guess-
better
I
to
guess
tear
I'm-
it down
I'm
and
just-
say, oh, I'm sorry.
Or what if someone in good faith, they tear down their barn and we impose this 5-year thing, but then they want to sell their property, and they do sell it, and then the person, they don't disclose it.
There would be a legal document within the court system, because that's the way it would have to go.
Okay, I
And
don't
then
know the
it would
answer.
show up on the title work as, and, you know.
Is that, I mean, what showed up on title work, Angela?
I believe it would go with the property. I mean, you can't cite a property, you have to cite a person or an entity, but I believe it would still stick with the property.
Let me ask you this. On here it says each day the offense continues constitutes a separate offense. Does that mean every single day there's going to be something filed?
And it also, this penalty is also about, say, maintaining the property. You're supposed to keep the property in certain, working condition, and say we cite you on Monday for lack of maintenance, and a month later you haven't done anything. Well, that citation, it just rolls over every day, so the judge can fine you for each day.
Here's an example.
Until you fix it.
Crabapple, across the street from him. Block building, tore an old house down in front of it. It's just a pile of rubble. So the fact is, the way we've done it now is we could actually go back to him, because he's got to leave it clean, grass planted. It's got to make it where it's a visibly pleasing site. They can't leave it just torn up. So if the idea behind that is, if we instructed, and the city code enforcement instructed them to clean it up because they didn't clean it up based on the demolition permit, which would be the way it's done now, then they would be fined on a per-day basis based on the fact they hadn't cleaned it up. That's not, if they tear the building down, you're going to get a fine every day. Then if they tear the building down without permission, or they, and this is more specific, we say, for example, tonight's a great example. We've said we would like to defer this because we don't want to deny your demolition permit. However, we need time to be able to research out what really needs to be done and how to make sure we do this correctly. But let's say that this particular individual decides, you know what, I don't give a rat's hind end what they said. He takes the bulldozer out there and tears it down. Well, with these in place, our potential penalty on him is he could not get a permit and he can't get a curb cut. Well, he is, if he did that, then he would be knowingly and collectively going against what the board had already decided that we wanted to have done. And then these penalties would be more for the people that strictly ignore the rules and the laws. Yeah, if you go down and tear down your garage at your house, nobody's going to come to you and try to not give you a permit, ever. The fact is, you probably didn't know any better. But the fact is, there's people that do this every day, and we do know better. And we do know what we have to do, and to violate, it's like building a building without a permit. The fact of the matter is, what do you do with a building? The guy builds a building without a permit, and the city finds out that the building's been built. Do we go back and instruct them they got to tear the building down? Well, by law, they can make you tear the building down. But then it becomes a function of lawsuits going through the process. So it becomes expensive and litigious, but they still have that ability.
It's better just to say pay your permits, pay your fine.
Well, what you try to do, it's like the IRS. The IRS says, you know what, all we want is you to come to conforming. So the reality is, a lot of these rules that we have is about conforming to the rules. If you get somebody that doesn't know any better, we've had lots of cases where people have come along and built something and said, well, since when did you have to have a permit for me to personally build a fireplace on my 2-acre lot? Well, since we became a city. Well, I didn't know that. I've been living here 30 years. Do you make him tear down his fire pit? You try to get them to go, the city to go over there and inspect it and make sure that it's safe and do our best to get them in compliance. And compliance becomes a negotiated thing, I would think. Is that the proper way to explain it?
She wasn't listening.
Hey, Bob, are there any other cities around here that are doing exactly this, that there's penalties behind
most
violating demolition permits?
City of Marietta does.
Most of them that have historic boards that do it, and this case, the DRB is acting in that capacity when it comes to a demolition of a building.
Right.
You know,
I
it's,
just wondered if somebody turns around and, sues us, that we can say, there's case law that supports what we had in place here.
Right.
There's case law, there's precedents, there's adjacent cities, all that kind of stuff.
if our city attorney has reviewed this, I promise you he has thought about the litigation side of it.
So-
And we've not put anything in there that,
what would y'all have, maybe this is for after the meeting, based upon these criteria and the one that we deferred tonight, what would you have done?
what we've done differently. In this particular case, I don't think we would have done anything differently than what we've already done. The difference would be is that if that particular property owner decided to tear the building down tomorrow without a
There was no
approved-
grievous action taken on their part yet.
Right. So so that's what it comes down to.
I guess the only other question I've got is just the penalty of 5 years. Man, that's a heavy, heavy penalty.
It's meant to make it punish, make it
I mean,
hurt.
that's way beyond make it hurt a little. That could be hurt a lot. If they're carrying a big note on that property that's contingent upon them, building a house or something on it, that could soak them for millions.
But you know what the reality of it is? Then it gives you a negotiating room to get more about what you want that house or that lot, that piece of property to be in compliance.
Or I guess, and then I guess you could still come back and they could still come and say, hey, we need to have this building permit approved, even though they have this 5-year no build on there.
But they
And if they can demonstrate that their actions were done not in malice,
Knowingly.
but in just ignorance,
Yeah, ignorance.
then you
Omission,
could
not
grant that
commission.
variance, correct?
Then it becomes a variance.
Yes.
So
It's up to
basically
the
this,
board.
yeah, so it gives somebody that just, hey, you just knocked down your house or an old house, you didn't really know the rules, it gives them an out. The developer who knows quite good and well, and you can clearly tell he knew the rules, in fact, he's filed 4 demolition permits in the past, and he just decided to see if he could squeak this one by, well, then that's where the penalty would be implied.
Yes, it comes down to that this just allows us to have a way to punish someone for not adhering to the rules.
I'm good.
If so elected. Okay,
Are you comfortable with 5 years? I don't know if I'm comfortable with 5 years.
I'm comfortable with 20.
I'm
5
You're
was
always
the negotiation.
vegetarian,
but I'm comfortable with it, assuming that there is a
But what I guess,
remedy for
there is a remedy, so it's not like this is a
hard and
cast
fast.
in
We wanted to
stone
have
thing.
teeth, but we also have
Right.
an out.
Because a lot of times
And then
cities
it's
will
up to the
pass
board
things
to
and they
say,
say
yes,
no
we're gonna
variance
make
can
this a
be
3-year penalty, or
can be
just-
applied, and it's like,
we just make
well, that
it-
doesn't make any sense at all. Like, there's
Well, the
just,
way it comes down right now, the guys have to think about whether it's worth defending the 5-year deal, and whether they want to go test whether this, and it comes down to money. And so they would rather wait 30 days so they can tear their building down.
because
than
odds
have to
are
deal
it'll get approved.
Yeah, because, I
I think outside of today's, that was the first time we've ever deferred a demolition ever.
And the only reason we deferred that is really and truly.
'Cause that was the first
Because
time
it was brought up as question of what, and it really is truly.
Right.
Of all the demolitions I've done in 4 years or however many years I've been doing this, that's one of the few, isn't it?
That's
that
the only
we've
one I've
ever
ever
come
seen where
to
someone said,
that it had
hey,
some significance to the house.
It's up to the judge.
yeah, most of the time people don't care.
Angela, do you
That was the
guys
only one.
typically suggest, like Mr. Powell, would you suggest to him to have Mark take a peek before he comes before us for demolition?
Usually we do. I think he's spoken with Mark, the arborist. I didn't know Mark hadn't gone out there yet, but they have been in communication. So,
He did say he'd spoken with him, he just hadn't physically been out to the property. Yeah, I think,
it just depends. It just depends. Sometimes it's not, there are no trees close enough to be an issue.
Right. Well, I just wonder, to make it, streamline this whole process, so this guy doesn't have to wait another 30 days, if there would be some thing you could give to him. If you're gonna do demolition permit, check off these boxes.
Oh, yeah,
They have
yeah.
One of them is to get Mark to come out and take a peek.
oh yeah. It's
They have
it's
that.
like 10
And if he
pages
had
long.
that and he didn't do it, then it's his. that's
Well,
his-
but the real reason behind this,
Yeah, this is
it makes them a
something completely
reason, but it makes them have a reason to comply with answering the questions.
different. Right.
So that we have all this information.
Before you just go
in
down there,
advance.
pretty much any old thing you want.
Next thing, can I move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we need
So I
to
just want to
approve-
check, so you all are okay with the 5 years?
Yeah, motion
Or-
to-
Or was there a?
Do we need to make a motion on this? Because I thought it was just a review of the.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just take your comments to Robin. Would you be interested in saying up to 5 years?
I'd be fine with that.
Then
That'd
it
be all
becomes
right.
subjective.
That'd
Yeah,
be good.
I'd say that would be better.
That would be good.
Up to 5 years.
As any good attorney will tell you, leave your options open.
Yeah.
Either the board or the city attorney or municipal court.
Whoever issues the
Up to
punishment.
5 years, and it could be 2 weeks. Yeah.
Then we get into a situation where are we applying it equally, because we may tell someone 1 year and then we come back and say 3, and then they come back and challenge it.
And honestly, that was the reason why we picked a specific number in the very beginning.
That's
I
a
would
good
rather
point.
just have a number.
But this board is not necessarily giving the
I
time.
don't think the board would issue the punishment.
That would be a staff
I
level.
think that would be
Okay.
the director or the court, and the court does that anyway.
So that's your problem.
Yeah,
case
so that's what I was going to say.
Somebody
But
else
your point, I do
up to
agree with
5
that point,
years,
actually.
probably. Up to 5 years.
And when will this go into effect?
Is it going to?
If they vote on it tonight, then it would be applicable.
Well, it still has to go to planning commission. It's a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, so it still has to go to planning commission and then before the council. So December, maybe, I think.
Okay.
But if they're okay with it, so that it would move forward?
So I'm hearing that they want to move forward.
I think so.
Yes,
So you're okay with it moving forward?
I am.
Yes.
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 I'd just like to say up to 5 years is
Yeah,
fine.
I would
Up
agree
to
with
5
that.
years.
I would agree with that.
The next thing, we lost our vice chair, of course, and I would like to make a recommendation that Laura Wysong be, if anybody else, you can nominate whoever you want, so.
Laura will be great. If she wants to do it. She's
Laura's got a lot of experience already, so does anybody have any objection to that? Is everybody okay with that?
I'm okay with it.
Is that something we need to vote on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does anybody want to make any other nominations? Somebody else that might want to be vice chair?
Somebody want to make a motion on that?
I'll make a motion that we nominate and elect Laura Wysong as our vice chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
And she's not here.
And she's not here.
Yeah.
The other thing in the last little bit of, before I adjourn, one of the things that I want to do, and I talked to Laura briefly about this, is I want to take the opportunity that everybody that's on the board gets to, at some point, direct a meeting. Because I think it's really important that all of us get that feel of what it is to be on the hot seat in terms of trying to deal with the public. Like, I can tell you guys, you may not believe it, but I really felt sorry for Mr. Powell. And
Yeah,
I
I did
really
too.
didn't want to say that we need to delay this, but I knew that it was the prudent, right thing for us to do.
But technically, he could just go and knock it down right now.
But that's not our job to tell him. And the reality is it's not our job.
Well, that's why you deferred it and not denied it. He doesn't have his demo permit yet.
Or a
And he
tree
can't
could
get his
fall
demo
on
permit until you all approve
Yeah. No, I did feel bad for him, though.
the.
And I feel bad for the
application.
couple with the sledgehammer next to him. I happen to have been to that
I so relate
facility.
to that. See, I didn't realize they had that going on.
That's one of those hammer machines.
Oh, man,
Let me tell you, this
That thing
thing's
is
the
so loud.
size of a
Hydraulic hammer.
bus.
Right, right.
But the
and it
reality
just-
of it is,
He's got to have that enclosed in a building.
it is
Just
enclosed in a
has its
building, but
doors
it's a
open.
steel building.
But the
No,
fact that
it's
the fact they were saying he
a
had the
concrete
doors
pad
open.
and where he is. I mean,
Actually, we should probably adjourn this meeting before we provide all these commentary.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Second.